Chapter 1299. Zhou Bingzhu seemed to be startled by her. However, he didn't refute her, as if he was afraid of something. Instead, he sat in the passenger seat obediently and didn't say anything. Gu Xingyin drove without looking sideways. She didn't give Zhou Bingzhu a glance the whole time. She had already thought it through. Since she couldn't be with her lover in this world, or even be close to him, she wouldn't give him any hints or hope from the beginning. In this way, after a month, Zhou Bingzhu would return to normal and return to the Zhou family. They would still be strangers who had nothing to do with each other. Zhou Bingzhu had a very thick baneful aura on him. Before this layer of baneful aura was removed, he wouldn't be affected by Gu Xingyin's life providence. This was also the reason why Gu Xingyin dared to get someone to follow him. It was already late. Gu Xingyin didn't go to the flower shop anymore. Instead, she drove Zhou Bingzhu straight to her home. Exorcists were not poor financially. Gu Xingyin's apartment was in a high-end residential area in the city. Before Gu Xingyin's car entered the door, Zhou Bingzhu said, "The house is here. It seems that Beauty Zhang's conditions are good." Gu Xingyin gave him a warning look. Zhou Bingzhu's face fell a little bitterly. "It's not my fault. I can't control my words." Gu Xingyin tacitly agreed. She actually knew it. When the Yin spirit entered a person's body, not only would they unconsciously begin to develop the Yin spirit, but they would also become like Zhou Bingzhu, who didn't forget to seduce people. Especially when that piece of blood jade had such a filthy origin. Gu Xingyin said lightly, "Since you can't control it, then don't talk." Zhou Bingzhu actually knew it in his heart, but he couldn't control his words and actions. He thought about it. If he spoke like that every time, it would be better not to speak. However, he turned his head and glanced at Gu Xingyin. This Miss Jiang was really not polite at all. The two of them entered the house. The room on the left is the guest room. The things inside are clean. You can stay there. The living room and your room are public places. You are not allowed to enter my room. If you have any questions, call me. It's this number. Don't bother me if you don't have anything. After Gu Xingyin called Zhou Bingzhu, she turned around and went into her room. Zhou Bingzhu looked at her helplessly and turned to enter the guest room that Gu Xingyin had mentioned. Oh, it was indeed very clean. It could be seen that everything was brand new. No one had lived in this room before. Opening the wardrobe, there were 2 sets of men's and women's pajamas folded neatly in the wardrobe. There were even private underwear. Zhou Bingzhu picked up a set of men's pajamas and smelled it. It was the fresh smell of detergent. Only then did he feel relieved. He took his clothes and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After washing up, Zhou Bingzhu felt a little tired. He didn't even play with his phone before lying down and falling asleep. A dreamless night. The next day, when Zhou Bingzhu woke up, he was stunned when he saw the sunlight leaking in through the curtains. To say something pretentious, this was the best night of sleep he had in the past month. He didn't wake up in the middle of the night because of the cold, and he didn't have all kinds of strange nightmares. This Miss Jiang was indeed a very magical person. Zhou Bingzhu got up. There were disposable toiletries on the sink. When he finished washing up and was about to change his clothes, he realized that he had rushed out with Gu Xingyin yesterday and didn't bring any change of clothes. Chapter 1300. Gu Xingyin was enjoying her breakfast. It was a very simple sandwich with 2 fried eggs and 2 slices of ham. It was the kind that could be eaten with bread. Then, she saw Zhou Bingzhu come out in loose pajamas. Seeing Gu Xingyin coldly staring at him, Zhou Bingzhu said embarrassedly, "I forgot to bring clothes yesterday. I just called Uncle Wen." He still had a lustful look on his face, but his speech was much more normal. Gu Xingyin just nodded. She didn't know that it took Zhou Bingzhu a lot of effort to speak so normally. Zhou Bingzhu sat down at the table and then found that there was no breakfast for him. He pointed at Gu Xingyin in disbelief. "Is there no breakfast for me?" Gu Xingyin finished the last bite of breakfast neatly. You lived in my house and asked me to expel evil spirits for you. Now you want me to make breakfast for you? Zhou Bingzhu, do you think you found a babysitter? Zhou Bingzhu, so angry. But I have nothing to say. He instantly felt so wronged and sad. Stop. Zhou Bingzhu struggled to stop those strange thoughts in his mind. He took out his phone and specially ordered a sumptuous meal for himself. I won't eat your food. I don't care. I'll order it myself. Humph. Realizing that he seemed to have some strange words in his mind, Zhou Bingzhu silently bit his lips. Miss Jiang was right. In his current state, it was better for him not to speak. Such a big man talking more than a little girl. It was really, Zhou Bingzhu just wanted to cover his face. The takeout came quickly. Almost at the moment when the box was opened, a strong fragrance filled the whole restaurant. Gu Xingyin, who was sitting in the living room and pretending to be watching TV but actually in a daze, couldn't help but turn her head. Looking at the table full of food, she frowned. You ate so much for breakfast? Zhou Bingzhu would never admit that he had deliberately chosen so many things to take revenge on Gu Xingyin. Seeing Gu Xingyin looking over, Zhou Bingzhu straightened his back and smiled. I don't know which one tastes better, so I ordered all of them. Miss Jiang, do you want to eat? Gu Xingyin shook her head. You can eat by yourself. I'm already full. Then, Zhou Bingzhu began to eat alone. He still expressed his feelings from time to time, saying that this was delicious and this was so good. He felt that he was venting his anger on Gu Xingyin for not giving him breakfast. When he had nothing to do, he ran to his room and stared blankly. He silently recalled his previous actions. Oh, fucking retard. Zhou Bingzhu felt that this whatever lousy inspector had simply caused him to be in trouble. How could this kind of childish behavior of a 7-year-old child happen to him? Uncle Wen quickly brought his clothes here. That night, Gu Xingyin knocked on Zhou Bingzhu's door. I'm going out tonight. If you have nothing to do, don't go out and run around. Zhou Bingzhu had yin qi on him. Putting aside the fact that it was easy for him to attract strange things, just his unsatisfied look alone was enough to attract a lot of women. No matter which kind it was, Gu Xingyin felt that it was very troublesome. Moreover, she didn't like it very much. After saying that, she was ready to turn and leave, but Zhou Bingzhu stopped her. Are you going to perform a task? His gaze was a little strange. As a member of the Zhou family, Zhou Bingzhu had a certain understanding of exorcists. Chapter 1301. Zhou Bingzhu had heard of a lot of demonic creatures, but he had never seen one. Men were naturally interested in adventurous and exciting things. Gu Xingyin glanced at him. You want to go with me? Zhou Bingzhu nodded. Gu Xingyin said, no. Zhou Bingzhu, Gu Xingyin continued, you're too weak. You'll drag me down. Zhou Bingzhu. Life is hard. In the end, Zhou Bingzhu watched as Gu Xingyin opened and closed the door without hesitation. He silently stayed in the room alone. Cold, so cold, it was as if something cold and gloomy was coming from all directions, burrowing into the blanket and into his body. His body felt heavy, as if it was being pressed down by something invisible, but he couldn't open his eyes no matter how hard he tried. Zhou Bingzhu knew that the feeling was coming again. He wanted to escape, but he could not avoid it. It was really uncomfortable. The light in the room was suddenly turned on, and Zhou Bingzhu suddenly opened his eyes. He saw Gu Xingyin standing at the door. Gu Xingyin frowned and looked at him. Have you always been like this? Zhou Bingzhu was still in a daze. He nodded when he heard the question. But after thinking for a while, he shook his head. Not last night. Gu Xingyin understood. It was because she was there last night. She had just finished her task and came back. She felt that there was a strong yin energy in her room. Looking at the source, it was Zhou Bingzhu's room. She thought that it would be fine to let Zhou Bingzhu stay in her room. But it seemed that it was not possible. He had to stay by her side. Looking at Zhou Bingzhu's pale body, Gu Xingyin said, "Go back to sleep." Zhou Bingzhu looked at her tidy clothes and asked, "What about you?" Gu Xingyin lowered her eyes. "I'll sit here for a while." The closer the two of them were to each other, the greater the effect of the innate ferocious qi in her body. Zhou Bingzhu's discomfort would be eliminated sooner. Even though Zhou Bingzhu was currently possessed by the Yin spirit, the original thoughts in his heart had not been buried. He also knew that it was not good to let a girl watch over him while he slept. He said uncomfortably, "Why don't you go back to your room and rest?" "I'm used to it anyway." After he finished speaking, he saw the woman standing at the door glaring at him. "If I tell you to sleep, then sleep. Don't talk so much nonsense. I've received your commission, so before the Yin Qi in your body is removed, I have the obligation to look after you." Zhou Bingzhu was young, handsome, and rich. He had always been successful among the young girls. When had he ever been tortured and yelled at? However, this eccentric Miss Jiang didn't treat him well the first time she saw him. Zhou Bingzhu sighed to himself. But now that he was the one who needed help, he didn't want to argue with a woman. When he closed his eyes, Zhou Bingzhu thought that he wouldn't be able to sleep. But perhaps he was too tired in the first half of the night. As soon as his head touched the pillow, he felt sleepy. Without that familiar cold feeling, he fell into a deep sleep. When she was sure that this person was sleeping soundly, Gu Xingyin's expression became gentle. She slowly walked to the bed and quietly stared at the peaceful sleeping face of the person on the bed. She reached out as if she wanted to touch his face, but just as she was about to touch him, she thought of something and quickly withdrew her hand. Chapter 1302. When Zhou Bingzhu got up the next day, he found that it was already late. He remembered what happened last night and quickly opened his eyes to look around the room, but he didn't see Gu Xingyin. It felt good to have a good night's sleep and feel refreshed. Zhou Bingzhu washed up and opened the door. He happened to see Gu Xingyin pushing the door open and entering the room. She was carrying something in her hand, and there was some dew on her hair. Obviously, she had woken up early. Zhou Bingzhu looked at the bag in her hand. It was some vegetables and meat. Obviously, it was food for cooking. "You cook by yourself?" Zhou Bingzhu was a little surprised. In Zhou Bingzhu's heart, exorcists were quite mysterious. He even felt that this group of people was otherworldly, let alone cook by themselves. Gu Xingyin glanced at him and said, "If I don't cook, I will starve to death." Zhou Bingzhu, he found that he always had to hold back when talking to this person. Gu Xingyin entered the door with the food. Suddenly, she turned back to look at him and asked, "Do you want to eat?" Zhou Bingzhu asked warily, "Can I eat with you?" After the previous few lessons, he already knew that he must be careful when talking to this woman. Then he saw that the woman in front of him seemed to smile briefly. The smile disappeared so quickly that Zhou Bingzhu wasn't even sure if it was his illusion. "Of course. If you want to eat at my place, the price will be calculated in addition to the original commission." Zhou Bingzhu was relieved when he heard that. Fortunately, if she just wanted money, everything could be settled. So, this matter was settled happily. To be honest, Zhou Bingzhu was a little curious. Gu Xingyin casually took orders by herself and made more money than many people in their lifetime, but she seemed to be very obsessed with money. Second young master Zhou had always been the kind of person who asked directly when he had doubts, and this time was no exception. Gu Xingyin felt a little strange when she heard his words. "The money I want is what I deserve." She looked at Zhou Bingzhu with her clear eyes as if he had asked a stupid question. "It's my business that I can earn my own money, but you eat my food. Don't tell me you don't need to spend money just because I'm rich." Zhou Bingzhu. What he said seemed to make sense. But he still felt that something was wrong. Gu Xingyin didn't receive missions every day. At her level, there weren't many monsters that she could personally deal with. Sometimes, she would only receive one mission in a month. On normal days, Zhou Bingzhu followed Gu Xingyin to the flower shop to help out. Yes, helpers. Gu Xingyin was lying on a comfortable recliner that she had specially found someone to custom make for her to bask in the sun, while Zhou Bingzhu was there as a waiter and cashier. Thanks to Zhou Bingzhu, Gu Xingyin's small shop, which no one cared about all year round, actually had a few customers. They were all young and lively girls. Most of them were attracted by Zhou Bingzhu's face outside the door. Zhou Bingzhu was originally good-looking, and with the effect of the Yin spirit, his whole person exuded a strange temptation. Ordinary people couldn't control themselves when they saw him. This guy was good at pretending. In the past few days, under Gu Xingyin's training, he had changed his sissy way of speaking. For young girls, he was simply a big killing machine comparable to nuclear weapons. Chapter 1303. Seeing that he had sold a few more pots of flowers, Gu Xingyin, who had been resting with her eyes closed, said, "Before you use the Yin energy to remove it, remember to keep a distance from women." Hearing this, Zhou Bingzhu suddenly smiled wickedly. "Keep a distance from women? Don't I live with Miss Jiang every day?" Gu Xingyin didn't open her eyes. "I'm different. You don't have to treat me as a woman." Zhou Bingzhu didn't seem to have nightmares these 2 days, nor was he affected by the Yin energy. He was in good spirits and was in the mood to joke. "Oh. Could it be that Miss Jiang is a man dressed as a woman?" Gu Xingyin suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Zhou Bingzhu. "Don't try to get information from me, and don't try to understand me. It won't do you any good to understand me." Her tone was very cold. It was clear that she didn't want to have anything to do with Zhou Bingzhu. The smile on Zhou Bingzhu's face froze. He immediately lowered his head and smiled. "I know. Miss Jiang is an otherworldly person. She doesn't want to have anything to do with a common person like me." Gu Xingyin opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something. In the end, she just closed her eyes and fell silent. The two of them didn't talk for the entire afternoon. These peaceful days lasted for a week. It had been 10 days since Zhou Bingzhu came to Gu Xingyin's room. The change in him was very obvious. The faintly discernible charm on him had almost disappeared, but he still looked a little lazy. Uncle Wen came to check on him every few days. Now, he looked at Gu Xingyin as if he was her second parent. During lunch, Gu Xingyin suddenly said, "I have a mission tonight. You come with me." Zhou Bingzhu's eyes lit up. "I'll go with you." Gu Xingyin nodded and didn't say anything else. Zhou Bingzhu asked, "Do I need to prepare anything?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "You just need to come with me. Wear thick clothes and don't catch a cold." Zhou Bingzhu, although the other party's words seemed to be concerned, he still felt like he was being despised. He silently finished the rice in his bowl, feeling a little stifled. At 8:00 in the evening, Gu Xingyin opened the door and glanced at Zhou Bingzhu, who was sitting on the sofa. "Let's go." Zhou Bingzhu looked at her and his eyes lit up. The woman in front of him had obviously dressed up and even put on light makeup. She was completely different from the Jianglan he usually saw. He couldn't help but ask, "Do you guys have a dress code when you go out on missions?" Gu Xingyin glanced at him. "You'll know when the time comes." Zhou Bingzhu obediently followed her into the car. He was a little curious. "Don't you need to bring anything?" He knew that exorcists had their own special weapons. Gu Xingyin smiled. "You'll know when the time comes." Their destination was a famous entertainment street in the city. The car stopped in front of a famous high-end clubhouse. Zhou Bingzhu's mouth twitched when he saw the name of the clubhouse. He had been to this place a few times with a few friends. Gu Xingyin knew what was going on when she saw his expression. "Why? Have you been here before?" Zhou Bingzhu felt a little guilty. "I've been here with a few friends, but Gu Xingyin interrupted him. "I know. It's just for fun." As she spoke, she looked at Zhou Bingzhu's lower body thoughtfully. That gaze made Zhou Bingzhu grit his teeth. "What kind of gaze is that?" "I just have high standards and have misophobia. It's not like I can't do it." Chapter 1304. However, knowing that Gu Xingyin was coming here, Zhou Bingzhu understood why Gu Xingyin had specially dressed up. In this kind of place, it had always been a matter of meeting the strong and stepping on the weak. If Gu Xingyin had followed her previous routine, she might not even have been able to enter the door. However, when they reached the door, Zhou Bingzhu was even more embarrassed. The waiter at the door knew him. But it made sense. As the second son of the Zhou family, he was definitely a big customer that every club had to treat well. As long as these people were not blind, they would have to treat him well. However, Zhou Bingzhu strangely did not want to show that he was very familiar with this kind of place in front of Gu Xingyin. The waiter was about to approach him, but he was stared back by Zhou Bingzhu's eyes. When the two of them entered the door, the manager also came in with his men. The manager's eyesight was much better. When he saw that Zhou Bingzhu had brought a female companion, he did not mention anything about the girl. He just eagerly led them into a very elegantly decorated private room. "May I know what you two need?" Gu Xingyin did not speak. Zhou Bingzhu waved his hand. "No need. Unless I call for someone, don't let anyone in to disturb us." Hearing this, the manager showed an expression of understanding. It seemed that young Master Zhou wanted to play something new. He secretly looked at Gu Xingyin. He did not know which family this beautiful lady was from. He seemed to have never seen her before. After the manager left, Zhou Bingzhu finally asked the question that he had been holding back for a long time. "Didn't you say that you were going to do a task? Why are we here?" Gu Xingyin took out a small thing from nowhere and threw it on Zhou Bingzhu's collar. The small thing stuck on his collar and did not move. Zhou Bingzhu subconsciously wanted to take it, but Gu Xingyin stopped him. "This can make the surveillance camera unable to see you." She opened the door and began to walk forward with familiarity. "Follow me." Zhou Bingzhu saw that she did not even need to think to find the place she wanted to go in the complex route of the club. He secretly sighed in his heart. "Miss Jiang seems to be more familiar with this place than I am." Exorcists were really a knowledgeable profession. If Gu Xingyin knew what he was thinking, she would definitely say in her heart, "You're thinking too much." She only sensed the mission target's aura and then let the system automatically plan the simplest route. The walkway was very quiet. Occasionally, one could see waiters pushing small carts forward. However, none of the waiters dared to raise their heads to look at the two of them. Their journey was exceptionally smooth. Until they reached a private room. Gu Xingyin stopped. Zhou Bingzhu's heart was filled with anticipation. Could this be the destination? Before entering, Gu Xingyin took out a yellow talisman bag with a red string tied to it. "Later, when you enter the door, stay at the entrance. Don't make a sound and don't walk around. Otherwise, I won't be responsible if anything happens. Do you hear me?" Gu Xingyin said in a low voice. Zhou Bingzhu nodded. Then, Gu Xingyin pushed the door open. Gentle pure music was playing in the private room, and the atmosphere inside seemed to be very good. When Gu Xingyin glanced over, she saw that the middle-aged fatty with very white skin had already put his hand under the skirt of the beauty in his arms. Being disturbed, the fatty seemed to be very unhappy. "Who is it?" At first sight of Gu Xingyin, the fatty's eyes lit up. When he saw Zhou Bingzhu enter behind her, the expression on his face became even stranger. Chapter 1305. Second young master, how come you have the leisure to come here today? When the fatty saw Zhou Bingzhu, the displeasure on his face had completely turned into a smile. The beauty in his arms seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied because his movement stopped, and softly muttered something. The fatty didn't let go of her. People who could come to this kind of place, everyone knew what was going on in their minds, so there was no need to put on an act here. Then, the white fatty saw that very beautiful woman walking towards him, and then, a long sword appeared out of thin air, and directly slashed towards him. What the hell? The fatty felt that his belief in materialism was on the verge of collapse. What happened next was even more shocking to him. The delicate and pitiful beauty who had been sitting on his body, suddenly retreated at a speed that ordinary people couldn't possibly have. Then, he was hit by a strong force, and his whole body was pushed back several meters along with the sofa. The fatty's round body also rolled, and solidly fell behind the sofa. This. Is this the strength that a human should have? The fatty got up with great difficulty, but before he had time to complain, the scene in front of him once again scared him down. His gentle and small female companion suddenly opened her mouth, and that mouth instantly became like a black hole, instantly covering her whole face. Then, like molting, that white and delicate skin suddenly burst open, and a dark monster grew out of that beauty's body. It was like the legendary painted skin. Thinking that he had just been affectionate with such a guy for such a long time, and almost went into battle with real swords and spears. This middle-aged fatty felt his stomach churn, and his face became pale. That monster opened its green eyes, and its mouth made a ho-ho sound, which was particularly horrifying in this dim room. Gu Shengyin only took a glance. An intermediate monster was not a powerful guy. It was probably because the other colleagues had a task, and could only temporarily assign it to her. The long sword in her hand lit up, and without hesitation, she slashed towards that monster. That monster seemed to feel the threat of the long sword, and wanted to dodge. But how could Gu Shengyin let her escape? The bright sword light landed on the monster's body. It was like a special effect in a movie. The monster's body froze for a moment, and then suddenly exploded. Its broken body began to burn automatically before it hit the ground, turning into ashes in the air. Everything returned to normal. "Turn on the lights," Gu Shengyin said lightly. His words woke up the two people who were immersed in shock. Zhou Bingzhu reacted quickly and quickly turned on the switch beside his hand. The entire room instantly lit up. The fatty suddenly came back to his senses and looked at Gu Shengyin as if he was looking at a god. This. Master, what was that just now? Gu Shengyin glanced at him. Perverts like to dress up as beauties to seduce perverted men. The fat middle-aged man's expression changed at the mention of a perverted man. However, he still had some lingering fear. Then, Master, that thing is dead, right? This was the thing he was most concerned about. Gu Shengyin smiled faintly. This one is dead, but there is more than one perverted woman in this world. If you are still like this, there will always be something coming up. Chapter 1306. When the middle-aged man heard this, his face did not look very good. Gu Shengyin's words were not pleasant to hear, but what she said was the truth. It was true that the monsters were rampant, but what kind of people did they often like to find? They were all people with more evil thoughts. From these people, they could get more things they wanted. If the middle-aged man had not been lustful, the monsters would not have found him so easily. The middle-aged man was also a big boss. When the people below looked at him, who was not polite. However, Gu Shengyin casually opened her mouth to teach him a lesson. He thought for a moment and said in a deep tone, "Thank you for your help today, but this matter." He paused and pointed to the messy box. "This kind of thing, it's not good to talk about it. I hope the master and second young master can keep it a secret." Zhou Bingzhu was a little angry when he heard this sentence. What did it mean? They saved him, but the fatty still looked like this. He wanted to say something, but Gu Shengyin pulled him. "Let's go." The two went straight out of the club. As soon as they went out, Zhou Bingzhu could not help but say, "Why did you pull me just now?" Fatty Wang, did he really think he could go to heaven just because he was promoted? I was going to scold him. Gu Shengyin kept walking to her car. Generally, people who have been entangled by monsters will leave a special breath in their body for a month. This kind of breath is easy to attract other monsters. Zhou Bingzhu's eyes lit up when he heard this. Gu Shengyin continued, "Every time I finish a mission, if there's a survivor, I'll give him a special talisman paper. The talisman paper can conceal the aura left behind by the demonic creatures." She sneered and said, "Today's man, since he doesn't need it, I will save something, won't I?" Zhou Bingzhu had completely understood what she meant. He thought for a moment and thought about the appearance of the monsters today. He felt that Fatty Wang seemed to be in big trouble. Gu Shengyin secretly said in her heart, "It's more than bad luck." Today, at first glance, she could tell that this person was plagued by evil. She was afraid that he had done a lot of heinous things in his daily life. This kind of person was originally the favorite target of the magical creatures, and he had recklessly offended Gu Xingyin. From Gu Xingyin's point of view, the man she saw today would soon face a bloody disaster. She pulled open the car door and was about to get in when her expression suddenly froze and she looked not far away. Zhou Bingzhu was about to get into the car, but when he saw Gu Xingyin's expression, he couldn't help but stand there. A red Ferrari supercar stopped next to the two of them in a very handsome manner. After that, a beauty wearing sunglasses who was dressed very provocatively got out of the car. Lon Lon, what a coincidence. You're here too. The beauty took off her sunglasses and greeted Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin frowned. Miss Yen, please call me Miss Jiang, or Jiang Lan. The implication was that they weren't so familiar with each other. Yan Zi readily accepted. Well, Jiang Lan, what a coincidence. This is... Gu Xingyin didn't mean to speak. Zhou Bingzhu felt that he should stand up and introduce himself, but looking at Gu Xingyin's appearance, it seemed that she didn't like this lady. He thought for a moment and felt that his current backer was Gu Xingyin. So he decisively chose to stand in the same place and silently become a background. Anyway, she wasn't asking him, right? Chapter 1307. The atmosphere became quite awkward for a moment. Fortunately, Yan Zi was already prepared to be ignored by Gu Xingyin. She said helplessly, I just want to be friends with you, Jiang Lan. Is it so difficult? Zhou Bingzhu lowered his head and pretended to be silent. In fact, his ears were pricked up. There was a story. Gu Xingyin said coldly, I've already said that I don't need friends. Perhaps because there were people around, Yan Zi felt that some things were not suitable to say, so she changed the topic. You have a mission tonight? Gu Xingyin nodded and then opened the car door. I'm going back. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that she was rejecting Yan Zi. Yan Zi was helpless and could only say, okay, then be careful on the road. Gu Xingyin got into the car. When Zhou Bingzhu sat in the passenger seat, she stepped on the accelerator and the car instantly left. Yan Zi, who was left behind, stood there silently and looked at them. That man was the second son of the Zhou family in the capital. The second son of the Zhou family in the capital. If she remembered correctly, he had nothing to do with Jiang Lan in her previous life. Could it be that after her rebirth, Jiang Lan's life trajectory had also changed? Yan Zi was a little confused. But she felt that she was more indifferent to her than in her previous life, and even rejected her. Could it be? A possibility flashed through Yan Zi's mind. Her mind cleared. If she was also the same, then all these made sense. If she could be reborn, why couldn't others? The more Yan Zi thought about it, the more she felt that her guess was correct. If Jiang Lan was also reborn and knew that she had indirectly caused her death in her previous life, then it was reasonable for her to hate and be dissatisfied with her. Yan Zi decided to find a chance to test Gu Xingyin next time. In Gu Xingyin's car. Zhou Bingzhu asked curiously, the beauty who just greeted you, is she also an exorcist? Gu Xingyin looked at the road ahead and casually answered, yes. Zhou Bingzhu felt very strange. In his impression, exorcists should be the kind of masters who wore black cloaks and had an unfathomable aura. However, he had seen her with his own eyes. She actually looked like an ordinary city beauty. In fact, if they did not say it themselves, even if they saw it with their own eyes, no one would be able to tell that they were actually the most mysterious and powerful exorcists. He then asked casually, are all exorcists as beautiful as you? Gu Xingyin tilted his head and looked at him strangely. Of course not. There are all kinds of people. She thought of something and said faintly, don't tell me you like her? Zhou Bingzhu quickly shook his head. How is that possible? I don't even know her. Even if... He suddenly stopped talking. Gu Xingyin followed his unfinished words and asked, what? Zhou Bingzhu suppressed his thumping heartbeat and replied that it was nothing. She glanced sideways and realized that Gu Xingyin was not looking at her. In his heart, he was somewhat glad, but also somewhat disappointed. He turned his head to look at the neon lights outside the car window to cover up his loss of composure. When he said that he liked her, he almost blurted out, "Even if I like her, I prefer someone like you." He did not say this sentence out loud, but he said it in his heart. As soon as this sentence appeared in his mind, Zhou Bingzhu was shocked. When did such a thought flash through his mind? Chapter 1308. Along the way, Zhou Bingzhu was strangely silent. Gu Xingyin glanced at Zhou Bingzhu, who was in a bad mood. She wanted to ask, but thinking of the situation of her body, she restrained herself. Forget it. They went back to Gu Xingyin's house without saying anything. Back home, Zhou Bingzhu just said in a hurry, "I'm a little tired. I'll go to wash and sleep first." Then he went into his room. Gu Xingyin stood behind him and felt a little strange. She didn't say much and just said, Her cold reaction made Zhou Bingzhu's heart skip a beat. After taking a bath, he lay on the bed. There was no cold air drilling into his limbs and bones. The warm quilt made Zhou Bingzhu very comfortable. In such a situation, Zhou Bingzhu almost fell asleep as soon as he touched the pillow. But today he couldn't sleep. There was a problem in his heart. Zhou Bingzhu was not a little boy who didn't know anything. Although he had never experienced the real love between a man and a woman, he might have seen more feelings than ordinary people. He might also know more about the feelings between men and women than ordinary people. Because of this, after he blurted out that sentence, he instantly realized something deep in his heart that he had never paid attention to. When did he have an unusual feeling for Jiang Lan? Whether it was the words that he blurted out, or his conditioned guilty conscience and flustered expression, it all showed that he cared about Jiang Lan more than a little. Why did he have an unusual feeling for Jiang Lan? Zhou Bingzhu thought silently. They had been together for 2 weeks, but they had never done anything intimate. Perhaps if compared to his usual interactions with others, the relationship between him and Jiang Lan could be considered as cold and indifferent. Jiang Lan's attitude to him was not good. She took him in only because she took the money, so she was responsible for him. If others treated second young Master Zhou like this, second young Master Zhou would not rush to take care of them with his self-esteem. But Jiang Lan was different. Jiang Lan didn't mean to be bad to him. She was such a character. She treated everyone with the same indifference. Such a person was better than a hypocrite who smiled on the surface but looked empty in the eyes. Only then did Zhou Bingzhu realize that he had actually subconsciously found so many excuses for Jiang Lan. How was she, Jiang Lan, worthy of him acting like this? Second young Master Zhou reached out a hand to block the somewhat dazzling light above his head as he thought silently. Of course, he couldn't think of any results. Feelings were something that came from nowhere. Second young Master Zhou silently turned over in his quilt and finally got up. The faint sound of a TV program came from the living room. He opened the door, and sure enough, Gu Xingyin was sitting on the sofa in her home clothes, watching TV. The makeup on her face had been washed off, and her face was clean without any makeup. Zhou Bingzhu didn't know if it was because he had just realized his feelings for her, but he felt that she looked much better now than when she was wearing exquisite makeup. "Aren't you sleeping?" Gu Xingyin asked. Zhou Bingzhu casually made up an excuse. "I'm not sleepy anymore after taking a shower." Gu Xingyin did not speak again. Zhou Bingzhu also sat down on the sofa next to her. Gu Xingyin was watching TV, and Zhou Bingzhu was looking at her. It was the first time for him to look at Gu Xingyin so seriously. Chapter 1309. Her facial features were delicate and pretty to the extreme, which was exquisite. The girl seemed to be very faint. He had faint eyebrows, faint facial features, pale skin, and even his lips were a pale pink without any color of blood. She sat quietly in the living room, right beside him. But Zhou Bingzhu had a feeling that she was not by his side at all. Yes. He finally understood what Jiang Lan made him feel. It was as if she had erected an invisible fence around herself, separating herself from everyone around her and from the rest of the world. She was unapproachable. Zhou Bingzhu remembered her words, "I don't need any friends." He frowned. You've been looking at me for so long. What do you want to do? Suddenly, a cold female voice sounded in his ear. Look at her. Even her voice was so cold. Zhou Bingzhu's first reaction was actually this. Fortunately, he quickly came to his senses and smiled. I'm just curious. You said to that woman today that you don't need any friends. Why? Gu Xingyin frowned. From Zhou Bingzhu's angle, he could see that the woman in front of him looked much more childish after doing this. But her words were not childish at all. There's no why. I just don't need any. Usually, if she spoke like this, Zhou Bingzhu would be very sensible and stop asking. But today, Zhou Bingzhu was a little unforgiving. Why? It's impossible for a person to exist without a group. Gu Xingyin looked at him with some doubts, not understanding why he was like this today. She thought for a moment and said, the person you're talking about refers to ordinary human beings like you. For example, I'm an exorcist. I'm different from ordinary human beings. I'm more used to walking alone in the night with the evening wind as my companion. As for friends, I really don't need any. I enjoy being alone, if you call that loneliness. Zhou Bingzhu found himself speechless. Because he noticed that when Gu Xingyin said these words, her expression was so natural, without a trace of reluctance. In other words, she really thought so from the bottom of her heart. This was a woman who had completely sealed her heart. For a person who doesn't even need a friend, how can you walk into her heart and even become her partner? Zhou Bingzhu felt that the most rational thing to do was to withdraw before he was trapped. After recovering his health, second young master Zhou was able to find a girl that he liked among numerous beauties of all shapes and sizes. After that, he would spend the rest of his life with her. He didn't need to lock himself to a woman who trapped him in a wall. Gu Xingyin noticed that Zhou Bingzhu's aura suddenly became heavy. What was wrong with him? Gu Xingyin was a little puzzled. Why did she feel that there was something wrong with him since tonight? Could it be the after effects of removing the specter? Zhou Bingzhu lowered his head, his mind in a mess. Suddenly, he felt a cool touch on his wrist. It was a fair and soft hand. He looked up in surprise and saw Gu Xingyin cocking his head to listen attentively. Zhou Bingzhu's heart pounded in an instant. Gu Xingyin felt around Zhou Bingzhu's body, but she didn't find anything strange. Chapter 13:10. Raising her head, Gu Xingyin found that Zhou Bingzhu was looking at her with a burning gaze. Gu Xingyin let go of his hand. I just checked. Everything in your body is normal. But this is the first time I've done something like removing Yin Fiend. If you feel any discomfort in your body, you must tell me immediately. Hearing Gu Xingyin's cold words and her businesslike tone, Zhou Bingzhu's excited heart seemed to have been splashed with a bucket of cold water. It was completely cold. He calmly put his hand into his pocket and said, Okay, thank you for Miss Zhang's concern. It was this tone again. Gu Xingyin felt it was strange. But knowing that Zhou Bingzhu was fine and unwilling to communicate with him, Gu Xingyin nodded and said no more. The two of them watched TV in silence. In the next few days, the relationship between the two was like this. Other than eating and going out together, there was never any extra communication. Zhou Bingzhu was more or less angry. Although Gu Xingyin felt that the atmosphere between the two of them was too cold, when he thought of his life providence, he felt that this was the best for the two of them, so he didn't say anything else. A month passed by very quickly. Tomorrow, the Yin Fiend in Zhou Bingzhu's body would be completely gone. When Gu Xingyin was sitting on the sofa and eating fruit, she saw Zhou Bingzhu sitting on the balcony and basking in the sun. After most of the Yin energy had been dispelled, the pretentious posture on his body suddenly disappeared. Without that disgusting temperament, Zhou Bingzhu's physical advantages were completely revealed. Handsome and three-dimensional features, tall and straight figure, and his shining identity as the second master of the Zhou family. He was the perfect candidate for a boyfriend and husband. Gu Xingyin moved her gaze away. Many people would like this kind of man, right? She felt a sour feeling in her heart. She could not chase after her man, could not get close to him, and had to stay away from him. Gu Xingyin felt uncomfortable with this feeling. She clutched her chest. System, don't you think I'm being too selfish? I can't be with him, and I can't stand him being with another woman. The system replied quietly, Host, I remember seeing a saying before, a person who is magnanimous when it comes to love either doesn't love you or is an idiot. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but smile. Okay, thank you. Zhou Bingzhu turned around and saw the smile. His smile was very faint, and it disappeared very quickly. It was like a white lotus quietly blooming in the middle of the night, quietly blooming and withering when no one was watching it. And he became the only passerby who witnessed it. Zhou Bingzhu turned his head and thought to himself, I wonder who or what could make her smile like that. In any case, it wouldn't be him. At 3 in the afternoon, Gu Xingyin received a mission. In the south of the city, a high-level demon was discovered. In addition to being more powerful, the most obvious characteristic of high-level magical creatures was that they had evolved intelligence. Gu Xingyin recalled the plot. Jiang Lan had not received this mission. In other words, the direction of the plot of this world had changed. The Exorcist Department also sent a message to Gu Xingyin, saying that the situation of this magical creature seemed to be a bit troublesome, and also arranged a partner for her. To let Jiang Lan work together with an exorcist, Gu Xingyin had to be vigilant against this magical creature. Chapter 13:11. During dinner, she told Zhou Bingzhu that she had a mission at night and asked him to stay in the house. Zhou Bingzhu felt a little strange. Don't I have to go with you? Gu Xingyin looked a little serious. This mission is more dangerous. I may not be able to protect you. She thought for a moment and said, well, the evil spirits in your body have basically been removed. They can't do anything to you. Just in case, you stay in my room tonight. She had lived here for several years, and the things in the room were stained with her aura. Such a weak evil spirit should not be able to harm Zhou Bingzhu. Zhou Bingzhu also knew the priorities. He knew that it was an exorcist's mission, and he would only cause trouble if he went there. He asked, your mission is more dangerous? Then you have to be careful. Gu Xingyin nodded. At 6:00 in the evening, Gu Xingyin went out on time. When she arrived at the appointed place, she saw Yan Zi in a trench coat and leather pants. She frowned, it's you? Gu Xingyin frowned for 2 reasons. First, it was Yan Zi. She did not have a good impression of the person who severely harmed Jiang Lan in the original plot. Second, it was Yan Zi. The monster that could make 2 of the most powerful young exorcists in the department was likely to be more troublesome than she thought. Yan Zi saw her frown and smiled helplessly. I know you hate me, Jiang Lan, but this time we are doing a mission. Please bear with it. Gu Xingyin glanced at her. Don't worry, I know what's important. She did not deny that Yan Zi said she hated her. For convenience, Gu Xingyin directly parked the car here and got in the same car with Yan Zi. Compared with Yan Zi's car, although Yan Zi's car was a little flashy, its performance was indeed better. Gu Xingyin would never fight over such a trivial matter. The two arrived at the mission location provided by the organization. It was just dark, and the monsters were about to come out to look for food. Exorcists could not do missions during the day because the monsters would hide during the day. They hid in places where no human could find them. They only appear at night. They could only be destroyed when they appeared at night. This was an abandoned factory. Normally, no one would think of coming here. There were no lights, and it was dark and messy. It was a little scary in this quiet atmosphere. Gu Xingyin immediately summoned the honed sword from his body. Yan Zi did not dare to be careless. She raised her hands and a long metal whip appeared in her hands. Don't move, Gu Xingyin suddenly whispered. Yan Zi looked at her strangely and stood still obediently. The system began to search the area. Searching in progress. Host, please wait for a moment. Host, quickly retreat. The system's voice rang out. Gu Xingyin reacted quickly. When she heard the system's voice, she subconsciously stepped back and pulled Yan Zi, who did not know what was going on, along the way. Just as the two of them retreated, the ground where they had been standing suddenly exploded. A figure shrouded in black fog appeared before the two of them. Human, race. The shadow actually stuttered in human language. Gu Shengyin and Yan Zi almost instantly entered the battle state. It's greed. Gu Shengyin's eyes focused and said. No wonder. If it was greed, it could grow to this point. Chapter 13:12. There were many desires in the world, and there were many kinds of monsters that were formed in the end. Generally speaking, the more evil thoughts a monster absorbed, the stronger it would become. Greed was the most widespread evil thought in the human world. A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Almost all the desires were caused by greed. The reason why this monster was so powerful was because it was born out of greed. Gu Shengyin immediately brandished the long sword in her hand. Do it. As exorcists, they were not afraid of the dark. They could see things in the dark as if it was daytime, so the monster did not have an advantage here. The sword light that could kill a mid-level monster was dodged by the monster in front of them in an instant. This speed, Gu Shengyin felt a chill in her heart. She raised her vigilance against this monster. No wonder the organization wanted her and Yan Zi to act together. This monster was indeed not easy to deal with. Pa! The monster dodged Gu Shengyin's sword light, but failed to avoid Yan Zi's long whip. Ayo! The monster howled in pain and actually reached out to grab Yan Zi's whip. Yan Zi felt a twitch. She could not pull it away. The monster grabbed the whip and dragged it to its side, but Yan Zi couldn't let go. Under such circumstances, if she lost her weapon, it would be a very dangerous thing. Gu Shengyin saw the current situation and swung her sword. Yan Zi only felt that her hand was loosened, and the whip returned to her hand. The demonic creature roared at the sky. Gu Shengyin had severed its entire arm with a single slash. In the eyes of the two, there was no blood flowing out of the wound. Instead, there was a trace of black mist that was exactly the same as the one that shrouded the monster. This was the evil thoughts. If this monster could not be eliminated this time, as long as the evil thoughts continued to devour it, its arm would be whole again. Gu Shengyin and Yan Zi looked at each other. They did not talk nonsense and attacked the monster at the same time. Although this demonic creature was powerful, it was still no match for the two of them combined. Soon, the demonic creature began to show signs of defeat, and Gu Shengyin took the opportunity to stab it in the back. Black smoke billowed, and evil thoughts poured out continuously. This was a good opportunity. Gu Shengfei stepped forward and thrust his sword straight into the monster's mouth. This was the monster's weak point. However, the sword was stuck in the monster's mouth. The monster had bitten Gu Shengyin's sword with its teeth. In order to increase the strength of this sword, Gu Shengyin went in front of the monster. At this moment, she could even see the uneven skin on the monster's body. The monster was obviously paying attention to the person who had injured it several times. Its remaining undamaged claw went straight for Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin only had two choices. One was to abandon the sword, and the other was to be seriously injured. If she did not abandon the sword, with the sharpness of the monster's claws, it could definitely scratch 2 wounds on Gu Shengyin's body. If she abandoned the sword, Gu Shengyin could be temporarily safe. However, that sword was her life weapon. If it was damaged by the monster, she would still be seriously injured. Gu Shengyin weighed the pros and cons and decided to take a risk. If the monster hurt her, it would inevitably relax at that moment. She would risk this injury and seize this opportunity. Seeing that the claws were about to reach her body, Gu Shengyin did not dodge, and her face was calm. Chapter 13:13. Her eyes were like cold lightning, directly locking onto the monster's throat. Just when the sharp claws were about to touch Gu Shengyin's skin, the monster's movements suddenly froze, and it raised its head high. Gu Shengyin didn't have time to think about what happened to it. She couldn't let go of this rare opportunity. The long sword in her hand stretched forward like lightning, and she silently recited a spell. The bright sword light instantly lit up the dark factory. Yan Zi, who was standing behind the monster, could clearly see that there was a bowl-sized hole in the monster's throat. "Retreat!" Gu Xingyin shouted. Yanzi nodded, and the two quickly moved away from the monster. Sure enough, when the two retreated to a safe distance, they saw the monster's body suddenly expand, and it actually expanded to 3 or 4 times its normal size. When the body swelled to its limit, it was as if it had been gently poked by something invisible. Bang! A huge explosion sounded, and a huge gust of wind blew the already messy factory into a mess. When the wind blew over, Gu Xingyin and Yanzi walked out one after another. "Just now, thank you," Gu Xingyin said. To be honest, she was very surprised. After all, she really didn't expect that Yanzi would choose to save her at that time. Yanzi was silent for a moment, and suddenly smiled. "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" Gu Xingyin thought for a moment, and nodded. When they got in the car, Gu Xingyin touched her pocket, and found that her phone was missing. She might have left it in the factory. After experiencing the self-destruction of that magical creature, even the best quality mobile phone would not be able to leave anything behind. She thought to herself that she should change her phone tomorrow. Yanzi had always been a person who knew how to enjoy. She took Gu Xingyin to a very famous Western restaurant in the city. The environment here was very elegant, and the seats were very far apart. The glass was also soundproof, so they didn't have to worry about their conversation being heard. After the two of them finished ordering, they fell into silence. Yanzi was the first to speak. Ever since I woke up one day, I've had some new memories in my mind." She looked at Gu Xingyin. "Do you hate me so much because of something?" Gu Xingyin raised his head and stared at her, as if trying to determine if she was telling the truth. In her mind, she was chatting with the system. "System, this is a bit too much information." The system's body flashed with white light. Verifying, but Yanzi had already spoken. "Do you hate me because I didn't save you when you were in danger?" Hearing this, Gu Xingyin almost believed that Yanzi also had a wonderful experience. For example, rebirth. The system also gave an answer. It has been detected that the mission target spacetime is in disorder. She has been reborn 20 years after Jiang Lan's death. Was he really reborn? Seeing that Gu Xingyin wasn't as shocked as a normal person, Yanzi smiled. "You too, right? Jiang Lan?" Gu Xingyin did not deny it. Yanzi took this as a silent admission. It seemed that the person in front of her was the person who had experienced that scene with her. Yanzi suddenly became a little emotional. "I really regret it, Jiang Lan, I'm sorry." She suddenly looked at Gu Xingyin, her eyes full of sincerity. Gu Xingyin raised his head in surprise. This development was a bit strange, wasn't it? Yanzi saw that Jiang Lan was a little surprised and knew that she still had doubts about her. She smiled bitterly. Finally, in front of the person she had felt guilty for her whole life, she told her the secret that she had never told anyone before. Chapter 13-14. After Jiang Lan's death, her guilt, her sleepless nights, even if she had limitless glory, she had always been burdened with heavy shackles. Gu Xingyin listened in silence. Until Yanzi finished. Yanzi looked at her. "Jiang Lan, whether you believe it or not, I, Yanzi, have a clear conscience in my life except for that one thing you did." Without waiting for Gu Xingyin's reply, she continued, "But that incident with you alone is unforgivable for the rest of my life." Seeing that Gu Xingyin was still silent and refused to speak, Yanzi thought that she was still unwilling to forgive her. She smiled bitterly, but she understood Gu Xingyin very well. No one would forgive the enemy who killed them in their previous life, right? She picked up the food in her hand and drank without looking at it. "I'm not saying all of this to gain your forgiveness. I just feel that I owe you an apology, Jiang Lan. If you have any problems in the future, as long as I can help you, just tell me, I will not refuse." Gu Xingyin finally raised her head. Under Yanzi's expectant eyes, she just said lightly, "No need." Yanzi's lips drooped. "You still don't want to talk to me?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. Now she finally understood why the system said that the mission target's hatred towards her was 0. It turned out that she was a reborn soul. She said lightly, "I forgive you, but between you and me, it's better not to have too much interaction." Yanzi carefully looked at her expression and found that there was no way to see anything from her face. She sighed helplessly. "You mean to write off what happened in your previous life, but you still want to continue to hate me in this life?" Gu Xingyin did not admit or deny. Yanzi also knew her cold temperament, so she did not find it strange to see her like this. Gu Xingyin said, "If there is nothing else, I will go back first." Yanzi glanced at the almost untouched dessert in front of her and sighed slightly. "Jianglan, I sincerely apologize to you, and I also want to be friends with you." Gu Xingyin finally looked at her face. Her eyes were clear and bright. Yanzi felt that when she looked at her, it was as if snowflakes were falling on her face in winter. It was cold. "I also sincerely accept your apology, and I really don't need friends." After saying this, Gu Xingyin stood up. "I have an employer at home, so I won't stay." She nodded to Yanzi and turned to leave. Looking at her back without hesitation, Yanzi silently picked up the coffee in her hand and took another sip. It was a bit bitter. When Gu Xingyin returned home, it was already 1:40 a.m. The lights in the house was still on the moment she opened the door. She met Zhou Bingzhu's joyful gaze. "Are you back?" Gu Xingyin grunted in acknowledgement. Zhou Bingzhu looked her up and down. "What do you think? Are you hurt? Did you finish the task?" Gu Xingyin felt a little tired. She walked to the sofa. "It's okay. I finished the task." Zhou Bingzhu did not care about her indifference. He continued behind her, "I just called you, but you didn't answer. I thought something happened." Gu Xingyin sat on the sofa. She slightly narrowed her eyes and sighed. "After finishing the task, I went for a drink with my colleagues, and my phone was broken." She did not expect that Zhou Bingzhu would suddenly get angry after hearing her words. Chapter 13-15. Do you know that there are still people at home who are worried about you? Can't you come back quickly if your phone is broken? Do you know how anxious I was when I called you again and again, but you didn't answer? Zhou Bingzhu was obviously very agitated. Gu Xingyin's heart suddenly trembled when she heard these words. To be honest, being an exorcist was a very dangerous thing. It felt good to find that someone at home was waiting for her after completing a life and death task. However, she was destined not to enjoy such warmth in her life. Therefore, in the face of Zhou Bingzhu's questioning, she could only close her eyes and not look at him. After Zhou Bingzhu vented his anger, he saw Gu Xingyin lying on the sofa and ignoring him. This was what he couldn't stand the most. He felt that his agitation was pitiful and ridiculous, but the person sitting on the sofa didn't care at all. He laughed angrily. "I, Zhou Bingzhu, must have taken the wrong medicine to care about a heartless woman like you." Gu Xingyin finally had a little reaction after he said this. She still closed her eyes and didn't look at him. "Second young Master Zhou, you pay for us, and I do things for you. After tonight, there will be no relationship between you and me." Zhou Bingzhu suddenly turned his head and stared at her face. Even if Gu Xingyin closed her eyes, she seemed to be able to feel the illusion of his substantial gaze nailing on her face. Zhou Bingzhu looked at her for a while and suddenly smiled. "You're right. You're right, Jianglan. There is no relationship between us. It's my wishful thinking." After saying this, he turned around and went to his room. After a long time, Gu Xingyin was sure that the person had left. She slowly opened her somewhat blank eyes. It turned out that when saying such heartless words, even her heart, as strong as she was, would hurt. She slowly got up and went to wash up. Then, she buried herself in the fluffy blanket. The next morning, Zhou Bingzhu got up very early. He stayed in the living room for a while, making sure that Jiang Lan didn't want to get up to see him off. After thinking about it, he laughed at himself. Maybe Jiang Lan has forgotten that I'm leaving today. Or maybe, she was glad that she, the trouble, was finally leaving. Zhou Bingzhu finally left. After he left, the door that he had been looking forward to opening finally opened. Gu Xingyin walked out silently in her pajamas. She opened the door of the next room. The window was open, and the bedding on the bed was neatly folded. She opened the cupboard, and the 2 sets of pajamas that she had placed inside were still there. However, the other places were all empty. She was stunned, and then she sat on the bed sideways. "System, do you think he's pissing me off right now?" Gu Xingyin asked. The system didn't say a word. At this time, Gu Xingyin did not need her to say anything to it. But that's good too. It's best if she's so angry that she doesn't want to talk to me for the rest of her life. Gu Xingyin muttered to himself, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. The system looked at her silently, and wanted to say, "Host, if you don't want to smile, it's better not to." But it thought about it, and felt that it was better to be a silent system at this time. Chapter 13:16. Zhou Bingzhu was picked up by Uncle Wen. Along the way, seeing Uncle Wen's joyful look, he couldn't vent his anger no matter how much he was angry. His parents were both famous in the political circle. Their status was comparable to theirs, so naturally, they were busy. There were 2 children in his family. His elder brother had always been the kind of child who belonged to other families. Naturally, he was the most satisfied successor in his parents' hearts. He didn't want to live as tiring as his parents or elder brother. His goal since childhood was to be an idle young master. He succeeded. However, in a family like the Zhou family, being ignorant and incompetent meant that his future was not related to power. Naturally, his parents put more energy into their eldest son, who was capable of being groomed. Naturally, Zhou Bingzhu became the neglected person in the family. And Uncle Wen was the one who played the role of an elder in his life. Uncle Wen was very happy to see Zhou Bingzhu return to normal. When Uncle Wen was young, he had a marriage and almost had a child. However, his wife died in the hospital bed. She died in childbirth. 2 lives were lost. At that time, Uncle Wen was still young. Later, there were many people who persuaded him to find another wife. However, Uncle Wen had always been thinking about his wife who died after giving birth to his child. He refused to marry again. Therefore, the second young master who he had watched grow up became the closest person in Uncle Wen's heart. "Miss Jiang is really a great master." Uncle Wen sighed with emotion. Zhou Bingzhu heard the name in his heart. However, he didn't want to dampen Uncle Wen's mood. He could only faintly hum in agreement. Uncle Wen thought for a moment and said, "Why don't we invite Miss Jiang to a meal another day to thank her properly?" Zhou Bingzhu said faintly, "No need. We paid her to do it. Now that I've recovered and the money has been transferred to her account, don't contact her in the future." This. Uncle Wen was a little hesitant. However, he saw that Zhou Bingzhu's face was not very good from the mirror, so he didn't say anything more. Could it be that the second young master and Miss Jiang had a quarrel? After returning home, Zhou Bingzhu's body returned to normal and he gradually returned to his previous circle. "Second young master, where have you been all this time? I've called you so many times, and you finally came out." A drunk young master smiled at Zhou Bingzhu. The music in the private room was a little loud. A few beautiful young ladies were sitting on the sofa, looking at them expectantly. Each and every one of these people was a genuine pampered son of a wealthy family. For people like them, if they were lucky enough to catch someone's eye, they wouldn't even dare to think about entering their house. Even if they were lucky enough to slip through their fingers, it would be enough for them to work hard for a lifetime. Zhou Bingzhu sat quietly. He had always been good at putting on a show, but for some reason, he didn't even have the mood to put on a show now. Looking at these young and lively ladies with heavy makeup on their faces, his mind was filled with the image of that damned Jiang Lansu with her face facing the sky. The more second young master Zhou thought about it, the angrier he felt. He took a big gulp of wine. He was thinking about her even when he was here. Where was that woman? He was afraid that after taking the money, she wouldn't even remember who he was, right? He downed glass after glass of wine, and it was obvious that he had something on his mind. Someone had already noticed him, and the music in the private room had also lowered. Chapter 13:17. The other young masters who had asked him to come out with them looked at each other. They didn't know why this second young master was unhappy. One of the young masters who had a good relationship with him shouted from the side, "Second young master, what's wrong with you? Are you drinking to drown your sorrows? Could it be that you're frustrated in love?" Zhou Bingzhu was already a little drunk. He thought in a daze, "Isn't it just that I'm frustrated in love?" He didn't answer and continued to drink. When the young master saw him like this, he turned his gaze and saw an extremely young lady sitting on the side. He pointed at the one with the best color and said, "You go. If you can make second young master happy, you'll benefit in the future." When the young lady saw that she was chosen, she was nervous and excited. She was nervous because she didn't know if these young masters had any strange hobbies. People like her who worked in this kind of place didn't care about self-esteem. Even if the people who worked in this kind of place were pure and innocent, what would they look like in the eyes of others? Which decent young lady would work in this kind of place? However, this young lady was more excited than nervous right now. In her line of work, who didn't know that drunk customers were the hardest to coax, but on the other hand, they were the easiest to coax. Why? Drunk people's thoughts were all messed up. Once the alcohol got to their head, who would know who the person next to them was? The young lady walked over to Zhou Bingzhu with small steps. She sat down next to Zhou Bingzhu and called out softly, "Second young master?" Zhou Bingzhu didn't respond. The young lady gathered her courage and snuggled into Zhou Bingzhu's arms. In the next second, she felt her body being thrown out by a strong force. Aya! She lost her balance and fell to the ground. Her back bumped into the crystal coffee table and she felt a sharp pain. Needless to say, there was definitely a bruise, but whether there was blood or not was another story. However, she didn't even dare to frown. Otherwise, it would mean that she was dissatisfied with second young master. She could only stand up aggrievedly and stare at Zhou Bingzhu with teary eyes as if she was angry for personal reasons. Originally, she was the prettiest among this group of girls. Now that she looked like this, Zhou Bingzhu didn't have any reaction, but the other young masters beside him were tempted. That person laughed and said, "I say, second young master, you can't be like this. Such a beautiful girl is sending you gifts, how can you not have tender feelings for her? If second young master doesn't want this luck with women, then give it to me. Is that all right?" Zhou Bingzhu seemed to wake up a little. Looking at the girl with exquisite makeup in front of him, he frowned in disgust. Change to a plainer one. This time, the young lady really felt wronged. Plain and clean? Did he despise her for being too flirtatious? If you want to be pure, don't come here. What kind of beauties couldn't he find in school? How could any girl who came to this place be truly pure? It was obvious that everyone else thought that Zhou Bingzhu meant the same thing. They all laughed. Second young master sure knows how to have fun. You're tired of eating big meals and want to try plain porridge and side dishes, right? Since the second young master had given the order, the manager of the club acted quickly. In less than 10 minutes, a row of young ladies with long hair were standing inside, and they exuded a youthful aura. There really are. A young master's eyes lit up. You don't say, looking at them like this, I do feel that the previous ones were a little vulgar. Chapter 13:18. The other young master's interest was piqued. Only Zhou Bingzhu was still frowning. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied. That's right. There was only one person in his heart. As long as that person was around, how could he be satisfied with other people? Thinking of this, Zhou Bingzhu's interest waned. He put down the wine glass in his hand and regretted coming here today. Seeing him like this, the people beside him who were all experienced in love could more or less guess what was going on. Waving his hand to let the others leave, the young master came to Zhou Bingzhu's side and asked, "Second young master, do you have someone in your heart?" Zhou Bingzhu opened his eyes slightly and glanced at him, but didn't say anything. This meant that he had acquiesced. The young master clicked his tongue in wonder. He didn't know what kind of stunning beauty could make the second young master of the Zhou family so concerned. For people like them, even if they had real girlfriends, they would never forget to cheat. But looking at the second young master's expression, it was obvious that he hadn't gotten the girl yet, but he had subconsciously started to protect her. Brilliant, really brilliant. The Zhou family was considered a first-class family in the entire capital. At least in this private room, there wasn't anyone who could be compared to the Zhou family. The young master felt that he had found a shortcut to get close to second young master. Thus, he said, "Second young master, if you have any doubts about your relationship, you can talk to me. Although I'm not a good person, I'm definitely an expert in relationships." Zhou Bingzhu's heart skipped a beat. But he wasn't completely drunk, so he didn't want to reveal his thoughts in front of this group of bad friends. He just frowned and got up shakily. "I'll go back first. You guys have fun." Zhou Bingzhu drove home, but he didn't know if it was because he was drunk or something, but the car kept moving until it reached the door of a familiar apartment. A few days ago, he had walked back and forth with Gu Xingyin several times, so they obviously lived together. The guard thought that he was Miss Zhang's boyfriend, so he didn't stop him. Zhou Bingzhu drove the car to Gu Xingyin's apartment building before he realized what he had done. His slow mind turned slowly, and finally, he slowly opened the car door. When Gu Xingyin returned home after completing a mission, it was already early in the morning. She saw a familiar car downstairs. Why was Zhou Bingzhu's car here? Her mind was in a mess. She turned around and went upstairs. At the door of her house, she saw Zhou Bingzhu squatting at the door like a big dog. Gu Xingyin frowned. "Zhou Bingzhu?" Zhou Bingzhu slowly raised his head and looked at Gu Xingyin for a long time before he said slowly, "You're back?" He continued to complain, "Why did you come back so late?" "I've been waiting." Burp. "It's been a long time." Her voice sounded a little aggrieved. Even from afar, Gu Xingyin could smell the alcohol on his body. "Are you drunk?" Gu Xingyin remembered the car downstairs and immediately became angry. "How dare you drink and drive? Zhou Bingzhu, do you think you're lucky, or do you think your life doesn't matter?" Zhou Bingzhu didn't realize what she was talking about. He just muttered, "It's so cold. Hurry up and open the door. I'm going to take a shower." Gu Xingyin was so angry that she laughed. She wanted to leave this drunk idiot here, but the temperature difference between day and night was huge. If she really left him here for a night, he would probably catch a cold. Besides, what was the point of competing with a drunk person? Chapter 13-19. He was drunk. At first, he just drove aimlessly in the city, but later, he found that he was getting more and more familiar with the route. It was the direction to her house. She was not at home when he went there. He quietly squatted at the door, the chilling night breeze blowing at his mind, making him more clear-headed. He did not intend to lie to her. It was just that the moment Gu Xingyin entered the door, her rare gentleness made him addicted. So he took the opportunity to get drunk. Zhou Bingzhu hugged Gu Xingyin with satisfaction. The empty heart of a person sitting alone in a bar was finally satisfied. "Jiang Lan." He sighed, "Be with me." This sentence was like an alarm bell ringing in Gu Xingyin's ears. She used her hands to break free from Zhou Bingzhu's embrace. "Zhou Bingzhu, your behavior is really shameful." Gu Xingyin threw this sentence coldly and slammed the door. Zhou Bingzhu was stunned for a moment, and covered his forehead with a headache. Why did she refuse to admit it? It was not his wishful thinking. After moving out of this house, Zhou Bingzhu used countless ways to inquire about Jiang Lan's deeds. It was just that Jiang Lan's temperament was usually too cold. No matter how much effort he put in, the result was nothing more than her being cold and emotionless. She was the kind of person who wouldn't even look at a pitiful person begging on the streets. Zhou Bingzhu thought for a moment. According to Jiang Lan's character, seeing him squatting at the door, the most likely thing she would do was to pretend not to see him. He was also prepared for this. But he did not expect that Jiang Lan, who thought he was drunk, would take him into the house, care about whether he fell or not, and even fill the bathtub for him. If it was not that he could not help but expose himself, perhaps she would reluctantly help him take a bath and then send him back to bed. If it was just an ordinary person who did this to him, Zhou Bingzhu would not feel anything. But she was Jiang Lan. The Jiang Lan who isolated him from the whole world and said that he did not need any friends. From the information he heard, she refused to have physical contact with anyone. But she helped him and hugged him. She said that she had no feelings for him at all. Zhou Bingzhu didn't believe it. Then why wouldn't she admit it? Zhou Bingzhu felt that he should ask clearly. He quickly cleaned himself up and changed into clean pajamas. When he opened the door, there was no sign of Gu Xingyin in the living room. Just as he was about to knock on her door, Gu Xingyin walked out with his wet hair draped over his shoulders. She had also finished changing her clothes and had obviously done a simple wash. Her expression was very calm, and there was no trace of her previous angry appearance. This calmness made Zhou Bingzhu a little flustered. "Have a seat. Let's have a chat." Gu Xingyin pointed at the sofa. Zhou Bingzhu sat down. He had the same idea. Gu Xingyin spoke first. "Second young master, I don't know what I did that made you misunderstand and think that I'm interested in you." Gu Xingyin looked at him. "I've said this many times. I'm Jiang Lan. I don't need friends, and I don't need lovers." Zhou Bingzhu's eyes trembled. "I still say the same thing. I don't believe it." Gu Xingyin sneered. "I said this not to make you believe it, but to tell you. Don't waste any more thoughts on me. Because we will never have a result." Chapter 13:20. If second young master Zhou was such a person who could be easily defeated, then he would not be second young master Zhou. Hearing Gu Xingyin's words, the smile on his face did not even change. "I still say the same thing, Jiang Lan, I don't believe it. You always underestimate a man's intuition. I can feel that you treat me differently." Zhou Bingzhu looked at her deeply. Gu Xingyin made herself not care about his eyes. She could hear her cold voice. "Then you will always underestimate a woman's heartlessness. Second young master Zhou, I, Jiang Lan, have never had any romantic feelings for you." Zhou Bingzhu had been staring at Gu Xingyin's expression. From the beginning to the end, he did not miss a single bit. He wanted to find the woman's flaw. But how could he see through Gu Xingyin's acting skills, which had experienced so many worlds? He could see nothing. This woman was just like what she said. She did not like him. "I don't believe it." He did not want to believe it either. He said this sentence in a high tone, but there was loneliness between his eyebrows. Such a man, who was originally favored by God, should be in high spirits and full of confidence at any time. Only this woman, only she, Jiang Lan, could make him show such an expression. Because he liked her, he was on the weak side from the beginning. Gu Xingyin looked at his expression and felt a little upset. There seemed to be some small insects crawling in her heart. It was not a heart-wrenching pain, but it was endless. She stood up and stopped looking at him. "It's late. I'll go back to my room first." "Second young master Zhou, today I made an exception to let you in for the sake of our cooperation. Remember, if there is no next time, I won't send you off tomorrow morning." Her arm was pulled by Zhou Bingzhu. The man almost begged carefully, "Is there really no possibility? You really don't like me at all?" In a place where he could not see, Gu Xingyin closed her eyes. Her voice was as cold as ever. "Really, I don't like you at all." Gu Xingyin exerted force in his arm and broke free from Gu Xingyin's grip. He returned to his room without looking back. Zhou Bingzhu was a little stunned as he watched her leave without any reluctance. After a long time, he slowly lit a cigarette. Pale-colored smoke spread out from his mouth and gradually rose up, and finally dissipated into the air. When Gu Xingyin woke up in the morning, Zhou Bingzhu had already left. There were many cigarette butts scattered in the ashtray in the living room. She could imagine how chaotic the man's mood was last night. In fact, Gu Xingyin did not sleep the whole night. "I have to go away for a while," she decided. She seemed to have underestimated the bond between their souls. During that 1 month, she had never done anything that crossed the line, but that man still fell in love with her. Heavenly calamitous lone star, alone and helpless, not fated with 6 relatives, punishing relatives and restraining friends, dying alone. Previously, he had been afflicted with the Een spectre, and the two of them had lived together like strangers for a month, barely living in peace. However, the relationship between them could only be maintained at the stage of strangers. Not fated with 6 relatives. She was destined to kill all the important people in her life. The organization felt strange when they received Gu Xingyin's application. However, as the number 1 exorcist, she had enough freedom. Are you sure you want to go there? The person in charge of the organization asked. He looked at the transfer order in his hand. The place where Jiang Lan was going was almost the most backward and remote place in the country. Chapter 13:21. Are you sure? The person in charge of the organization was a little puzzled. In such a far place, the organization couldn't provide support if something happened. Moreover, the benefits wouldn't be as good as in the capital. Gu Xingyi nodded and said, "When can I leave?" The person in charge of the organization looked at Gu Xingyi and sighed in his heart. Anyway, he had never seen through this subordinate of his that he was most proud of. You don't have any missions for the time being. You can leave at any time. Gu Xingyi took the transfer order. When she turned to leave, she only said one sentence, "Don't tell anyone where I'm going." The person in charge thought that she wanted him to respect her privacy, so he quickly said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely keep it a secret." Gu Xingyi didn't waste any time and booked the plane ticket that night. When Zhou Bingzhu came here again, all he saw was an empty house. She went somewhere else? Zhou Bingzhu looked at the information in his hand that he had spent a lot of money to get someone to find out. Yes, second young master. We can only find out this much, the person said. Zhou Bingzhu asked him to leave. Did she just leave without a sound? Zhou Bingzhu felt that it was a little ridiculous. He had just confirmed his feelings and was about to pursue her, but he realized that she had already gone to a place he didn't know about. He read through the information slowly and carefully. His beautiful phoenix eyes narrowed. You can't run away, Jiang Lan. He was convinced that her feelings for him were definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, why would she leave in such a hurry? Second young master Zhou sat in the study for an entire night. Gu Xingyi, who was on her way to the mission location, looked at the clouds outside the window with a peaceful heart. As long as she left, Zhou Bingzhu would be able to let go after a while, right? The system suddenly said, "Host, actually, your lover can accompany you in every world. Even if the two of you are together and he dies because of your life providence, you can still meet in the next world." The system meant that Gu Xingyi didn't have to care about this at all. After all, after her mission was completed, she would go to the next world. There was no need for such a long wait. The system would always put the benefits of the host first. Zhou Bingzhu knew nothing about the current situation. Gu Xingyi was behind everything. The system felt that the host had been wronged. In every world, it was the host who did the missions alone. It was already very sad for the host to remember everything by himself. In the mission world, the host should be pampered and protected. Wasn't it also a kind of luck for that person to not remember anything in each world? Gu Xingyi only smiled at the system's words. She said, "In my eyes, he and I are different." She spoke seriously. I have the memories of every world, so I can treat every mission world as an illusion. But he's different. To him, the experience of each life could be his entire life. I can waste and wait, but he can't. She smiled and said, "I hope that he can live a good life in every life." For the first time, the system realized that its host was actually so good at sweet-talking. It thought about it. After that person's divine sense returned to the original body, he could see the situation of every life. What would he think if he heard such words? Chapter 13:22. After getting off the plane, Gu Xingyi quickly found a place to stay. She was not short of money and was generous. Soon, she found a suite with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. She found a hotel and stayed for the night. The next day, she bought all the daily necessities she needed. Gu Xingyi was quite satisfied with her work in this world. Although it was slightly dangerous, it was only for other exorcists. At Jiang Lan's level, there were very few monsters that could threaten her existence. She only needed to go out when there was a mission. She was quite free most of the time. The savings left by Jiang Lan's orders were enough for Gu Xingyin to squander for the rest of her life. When she had nothing to do, she walked around this place. It was a relatively remote and backward place, which meant that the surroundings had not been overdeveloped. She often went out to climb mountains by herself. Sometimes, she would spend the night at the top of the mountain and lie on the grass the next morning to watch the rising sun. She seemed to have a lot of time and was relatively well off. Naturally, she attracted some people's attention. A mountaineering enthusiast who met her asked her if she was a freelancer. Gu Xingyin thought for a moment. Exorcism was indeed a relatively free profession. She nodded. Unexpectedly, the man seemed to be very interested in her. After a few meetings, he asked her for her phone number. Gu Xingyin certainly would not give it to him. Not to mention that she did not have a good impression of the man. Even if she did, it was even more impossible for her to get close to him. The man was persistent. He always found various excuses to create coincidences to get close to her. Gu Xingyin warned him several times, but he still did not listen. Until half a month ago, the safety rope tied to the man's body while he was climbing the mountain suddenly broke, causing him to fall down. Fortunately, he had just started climbing and was only 3 or 4 meters high. His leg was broken and he was in a cast in the hospital. Gu Xingyin was silent when she heard the news. She went to the ward to look at the man. "I told you not to get close to me. I'm a person who will bring bad luck to people." The man was half lying on the bed and laughed when he heard this. "Even if you want to reject me, you should find a suitable reason." Obviously, he didn't believe it. Gu Xingyin didn't say anything more. "I've already said what I need to say. For the sake of your own life, don't come near me again. That's all I have to say." Half a month later, when Gu Xingyin went out again, she saw that man again. He smiled brightly at Gu Xingyin. "I'm a firm believer in materialism, and I like challenging things the most. Therefore, I won't give up on pursuing you." Gu Xingyin looked at him coldly and said, "Then wait and see." The man didn't understand what Gu Xingyin meant until an apple fell from the sky and hit his arm when he returned home from the supermarket. The apple was not heavy, but it was thrown from the 6th floor. The man, who had just been discharged from the hospital for less than a week, was sent to the hospital with a fracture again. The perpetrator immediately apologized and Xing Nua paid for the medical expenses. Their 2 children were playing with each other, and they accidentally threw the apple in their hands. Who knew that it would be such a coincidence? The man sat on the hospital bed helplessly and listened to the nurse's nagging. Gu Xingyin's words inadvertently came to his mind. He finally couldn't help but shudder. Chapter 13:23. That man finally didn't come looking for her. Of course, Gu Xingyin also knew what happened to him through the system. But she didn't think it was her fault. She had warned that man several times not to approach her, but he didn't listen. Humans were like this, they never listened to other people's advice. They would only take other people's words seriously when they were really taught a lesson. Even if she already knew that Yan Zi didn't have any hatred towards her, Gu Xingyin still let the system pay attention to her movements regularly. In her free time, she would study the magic absorbing array. According to this progress, she would be able to make it in 3 years at most. Only Zhou Bingzhu, she had been restraining herself from thinking about him, and didn't let the system report his whereabouts. She was afraid that she couldn't help but want to get close to him. "System, can I choose to leave after completing the task in this world?" Gu Xingyin felt that this kind of life was too difficult to bear. The system gave an affirmative answer, "Yes, host, as long as you complete the task, you can choose to stay or leave." But the host had never chosen to leave, she had always chosen to live a peaceful life with her lover. This time, Gu Xingyin wanted to leave. In this world, she didn't have any reason to stay for a long time. When the magic absorbing array was developed, if it was confirmed that it could be used normally, the hidden danger of this world would be completely eradicated. Then, Gu Xingyin wouldn't have any reason to stay here. In her free time, Gu Xingyin would play the piano in the room for a while. She had drawn the skill from this world. Before moving here, she had never tried it, because Jiang Lan didn't know how to play the piano. In this place, where no one knew her, it didn't matter. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. The magic-absorbing array's research was unexpectedly smooth. The originally estimated 2 years seemed to be shortened a little. One day, when Gu Xingyin got up in the morning and was about to eat something, she saw a familiar figure outside the door. A black leather trench coat, wine-red wavy hair, charming and attractive. Yan Zi, this woman, was always as dazzling as a catwalk model. That's right, she was originally a model. Just like Gu Xingyin, who opened a small flower shop to pass the time, Yan Zi was also a famous model in the fashion industry. It would be a lie to say that Gu Xingyin was not surprised to see an old acquaintance. Why? Are you curious? How did I find this place? Yan Zi smiled faintly. Gu Xingyin did not change his mind about going out for breakfast because of her arrival. What a coincidence, I haven't eaten anything either. In any case, I came from afar. As the host, it's not too much for you to treat me to breakfast, right? Yan Zi winked at her. Gu Xingyin said to her directly, get in the car. You can't treat others as casually as you treat yourself to a meal. Gu Xingyin chose a breakfast restaurant with a more elegant environment. There were not many people at the moment. She and Yan Zi sat opposite each other. How did you find this place? Gu Xingyin asked. Yan Zi smiled. Me? I tried my best to find you for 2 whole years. The boss really kept it a secret. I pestered him for a year, and finally he told me that you were here when I said that I was going to go on strike. When Yan Zi said this, she thought of her boss's headache and couldn't help but laugh. But she looked at Gu Xingyin and couldn't help but say, why did you come here without saying anything? Do you know that the people in the capital have been looking for you like crazy? Chapter 1324. Hearing Yan Zi's words, Gu Xingyin frowned. What do you mean? Although she asked this question, she had an absurd conjecture in her heart. Looking at her, Yan Zi knew that in the past 2 years, her indifferent colleague was still the same as before. Except for the task, she didn't care about anything. She said, I remember that you know the second young master of the Zhou family. I even saw him beside you. Gu Xingyin's heart skipped a beat. Zhou Bingzhu? What's wrong with him? When Yan Zi mentioned the man, there was a trace of fear in her eyes. I only knew that the first young master of the Zhou family was a powerful figure and the most valued successor of Zhou Xia. But I guess everyone was wrong. The second young master of the Zhou family is the one who hides the deepest. Hearing this, Gu Xingyin's expression was a little subtle. In the past 2 years, he has climbed up too fast. In terms of ability and means, he is not worse than those old guys who have been in the officialdom for decades, but, she glanced at Gu Xingyin, secretly, everyone knows that the second young master has been crazily looking for a person in the past 2 years. Gu Xingyin's expression didn't change when she heard this. Oh? Who is he looking for? Yan Zi looked at her expression carefully, but she could never see anything from Gu Xingyin's face. She could only shrug her shoulders to show that she gave up. Yan Zi shook her head. The news on his side is very tight, and no one knows the specific information. I just guess according to some vague information. She looked at Gu Xingyin seriously. The person he is looking for is probably you, Jiang Lan. Yan Zi was still uncertain here, but Gu Xingyin was relieved in her heart. If what Yan Zi said was true, then it was very likely that Zhou Bingzhu was looking for him. After all, she left without saying goodbye in those years. Based on her understanding of the man's nature, even if his character was different in every world, his possessiveness to her had never changed. Yan Zi was still asking, Jiang Lan, tell me the truth, you and the second young master? Gu Xingyin shook her head. There's nothing between us. Seeing her resolute attitude, even though Yan Zi had some doubts in her heart, she didn't ask any further. Gu Xingyin continued, why did you come looking for me? Yan Zi's attention immediately changed. Can't I come to you for no reason? Gu Xingyin still looked cold and indifferent. If there's nothing else, you can walk around here after eating. You'd better go back early. At this moment, even Yan Zi, who always had a smile on his face, collapsed. I say, Jiang Lan, I've never seen someone like you. In any case, I came all the way here to see you. It's fine if you don't treat me warmly, but you can't wait to drive me away? Yan Zi felt that he was an idiot for rushing over in such a hurry. Gu Xingyin looked at Yan Zhika, whose face was red with anger. According to her usual temperament, she was going to say, I'm not the one who asked you to come and see me. If she really said that, the person in front of her would probably flip the table and leave directly. Maybe because she had made the decision to leave this world, or maybe because she suddenly heard that Zhou Bingzhu was looking for her, she was a little confused. Gu Xingyin suddenly had the idea of confiding in her. She sighed slightly, let's talk somewhere else. Instead of taking Yan Zi home, Gu Xingyin changed to a tea room, and the two chatted in a private room. Gu Xingyin came straight to the point. Have you heard of the Heavenly Lone Star? Chapter 1325. Yan Zi was taken aback by this question. She looked at Gu Xingyin with an uncertain expression. Are you talking about the innate lone star, who will jinx everyone close to her? Gu Xingyin nodded. Yan Zi's expression was a little strange. She looked at Gu Xingyin and seemed to have guessed something in her heart. Gu Xingyin didn't keep her guessing, I am the loner. Yan Zi stared at her with her eyes wide open. It was a big shock to her to suddenly hear such a news. Gu Xingyin stopped talking after saying this. She looked at Yan Zi quietly, as if waiting for her to come back to her senses. Yan Zi took a sip of water and tried to calm herself down. Gu Xingyin looked at her, if you have anything to ask, just ask. Yan Zi felt a little nervous. Her mind was still in a mess. She looked at Gu Xingyin and said with uncertainty, so, you said that you don't need friends. You don't talk to anyone and always be alone. Is that the reason? Gu Xingyin was silent for a moment and then said, maybe it was at the beginning. Later, I began to think that being alone was good. She looked at Yan Zi, would you like to hear a story? Yan Zi nodded. She was nervous and a little excited. She was sure that with Jiang Lan's character, she had never told anyone about these things. Gu Xingyin began to tell a story that was not very long. I don't have any memory of when I was born. I started to remember that I was in the orphanage. The only person who treated me well was the old director of the orphanage. At that time, I didn't know that I had such an ominous fate. I only knew that when I was 4 years old, I was sick. The old director took me to see a doctor, but we had a car accident. The old director protected me. I was fine, but he died. The old director was the pillar of our orphanage. When he died, the others blamed me. They began to call me a jinx. It's just that at that time, this name was basically used to scold people. Later, an auntie who delivered food to me broke her arm. A little girl who was close to me sneaked out to play and fell into the manhole cover. From then on, I became a truly inauspicious person. When Gu Xingyin talked about this, her expression was very calm, as if these things were nothing to her. As Yan Zi listened, a sour feeling welled up in her heart. She even thought about how such a young child would feel when everyone who liked to be close to her met with misfortune and she was ostracized by everyone. Gu Xingyin ignored her expression and continued, that's right. I stayed in that orphanage until I was 7 years old. Finally, I was discovered by Master Ning Yuan and brought to our current organization. When Gu Xingyin talked about Master Ning Yuan, there was a slight warmth in her expression. She looked much more lively. Yan Zi had heard of the name of Master Ning Yuan. He was a highly respected senior, but it was said that he had encountered an unexpected accident. Master Ning Yuan is the person who treats me the best in the world and has been with me for the longest time. He taught me to read, asked me to learn Buddhist magic, and introduced me to the seniors of Taoism. Yan Zi noticed that Gu Xingyin's expression was bright when she talked about these, which was very different from the usual stagnant look. This Master Ning Yuan must have brought Jiang Lan many beautiful memories, right? Chapter 1326. As she spoke, Gu Xingyin's expression became downcast. It was also Master Ning Yuan who let me know that I was a jinx. It turned out that those curses were not cursing me. I was really a jinx. For a long time, my biggest wish in life was to call Master Ning Yuan my master, but I couldn't. Gu Xingyin's expression was a little complicated. Because I was a jinx. If the master-disciple relationship was too close, it would jinx him. When I slowly learned what it meant to be a jinx, I was very worried and asked Master Ning Yuan if it would affect him if he was so close to me. He said no. He told me that we were not in a master-disciple relationship, and we did not live in the same house. Moreover, what he practiced was merits, so the murderous aura had little impact on him. Gu Xingyin covered her face. I really believed it at that time. Seeing her like this, Yanzi suddenly thought of Master Ning Yuan, whose death came suddenly. When the news of Master Ning Yuan's accidental death came, I had just finished a task. My first feeling at that time was that I might as well stab myself to death with the sword in my hand. A smile appeared on Gu Xingyin's lips. A person like me shouldn't have come to this world at all. Yanzi's eyes were red. She never knew that her colleague, who had always walked in front of all the exorcists, had such deep pain hidden in her heart. That's what happened later. Gu Xingyin's tone had calmed down. I learned to control my emotions and no longer contacted anyone. The only thing I could do was to not harm any innocent people. Yanzi stared at Jiang Lan, who was sitting opposite her. This young girl's face was as pale as ever, and her facial features were always faint, as unapproachable as her temperament. Yanzi suddenly said, "Can I hug you?" Gu Xingyin looked up in surprise. Before she could say anything, she sensed a shadow coming towards her. Then, a strong hug enveloped her. Gu Xingyin moved a little uncomfortably, but she did not break free. Yanzi only hugged him for a moment before letting go. She smiled at Gu Xingyin and said, "Well, it seems like we can't be friends for the rest of our lives." Gu Xingyin also smiled faintly. "I've already said that Jiang Lan doesn't need friends." Yanzi had heard her say this many times, but this time, it felt completely different from before. Perhaps she didn't need friends, but more importantly, she couldn't have friends, right? Liking a person, wanting to get close to a person, was pushing that person towards death. How painful. Yanzi shrugged and looked at Gu Xingyin seriously. "Actually, you are really a good person." Gu Xingyin raised her eyebrows and looked at her. Yanzi smiled. "You know the stupid thing I did in my previous life. In this life, when I wanted to be friends with you, I didn't agree. Now that I think about it, I managed to escape with my life. If Jiang Lan really wanted to take someone's life, no one would be able to stop him." Gu Xingyin didn't deny it, but said, "If I really wanted to take your life, I wouldn't have to use such sneaky means." This was the confidence of the number one exorcist, Jiang Lan. Chapter 1327. Yanzi suddenly asked, "What about second young Master Zhou?" Hearing Zhou Bingzhu's name, Gu Xingyin suddenly became silent. Yanzi said, "When I saw you two together that year, I felt that there was something fishy. Then you inexplicably disappeared, and second young Master Zhou rose up and was still frantically looking for someone." Yanzi looked at Gu Xingyin. "Actually, the person he was looking for is you, right?" Gu Xingyin said softly, "I don't know. In the past 2 years, I didn't pay attention to his news." Yanzi seriously looked at Gu Xingyin and suddenly laughed. "Jiang Lan, you are really a heartless woman." But as soon as she finished speaking, she was speechless. Isn't that right? Jiang Lan can only be a heartless woman. Inexplicably, Yanzi had a trace of sympathy for second young Master Zhou, who she was not familiar with. He was madly in love with a woman he could never get, but Yanzi didn't think that sitting in front of her was also a pitiful woman who could never get close to the person she loved. In fact, she just didn't think that Jiang Lan could be tempted by someone. The two people's conversation basically ended here. Yanzi didn't complain that Gu Xingyin didn't invite her to her home. She stayed in this city for 3 days. She went to play 2 rounds by herself and took time to have 2 meals with Gu Xingyin. Then Yanzi returned to the capital. Gu Xingyin didn't see her off. Yan Zi left, and Gu Xingyin still lived her life alone. System, in another 2 months, I should be able to complete this array formation. Gu Xingyin's hands quickly ran calculations on the computer. In modern society, there was no need to constantly consume energy to make half-finished products like before. She only needed to use a meticulous instrument to calculate and perfect step by step. Last week, she had already tried to make a finished product. The effect was there, but it was a one-time item. After estimating the production cost and value of the array, Gu Xingyin silently crossed out the previous calculation and started the calculation again. A week later, an uninvited guest came to her house. At first, Gu Xingyin thought it was a part-time worker, but when she opened the door, Gu Xingyin met a pair of familiar black eyes. Zhou Bingzhu. He came to find her. Seeing Gu Xingyin stunned at the door, Zhou Bingzhu raised his eyebrows. Why, don't you want to invite me in? Gu Xingyin came back to her senses and nodded. I don't. My house is a mess, second young master Zhou. Hearing this, Zhou Bingzhu's face was broken. He gritted his teeth and said to Gu Xingyin, Jianglan, how could you be so heartless? In these 2 years Master Zhou Master, he was Master Zhou. He heard that the exorcist named Yan Zi had been traveling here for a few days, and he had a hunch that she might be here. After checking all of Yan Zi's travel, air tickets, and housing records, he put down everything in his hands and rushed here without hesitation. Zhou Bingzhu himself couldn't describe the ecstasy that welled up in his heart when he saw the familiar face behind the door after rushing here without any rest the entire night. However, this woman, she actually said such cold words as soon as she opened her mouth. Zhou Bingzhu felt his teeth itch. He really wanted to bite her. It was 8:00. The diligent Gigi begs for a recommendation ticket and monthly ticket. Good night everyone. Chapter 1328. In the end, Zhou Bingzhu entered Gu Xingyin's room. Because Gu Xingyin felt that if she didn't take the initiative to let him in, the door might be broken in the next second. Zhou Bingzhu looked around the room. Very good. Even if he left the capital and left himself, Jiang Lan would not treat him badly. Out of politeness, Gu Xingyin poured a cup of warm water for Zhou Bingzhu with a clean cup. Why did second young master Zhou suddenly come here? Zhou Bingzhu was full of emotions and didn't know how to vent. Seeing Gu Xingyin's indifferent look, as if everything had nothing to do with her, Zhou Bingzhu felt an inexplicable anger in his heart. She was always like this. After teasing his mood into a mess, she left without any reluctance. He was left alone in the mire. He suddenly laughed in a deep voice. It's not sudden, Jiang Lan. I have been looking for you for 2 years. He knew that he couldn't play any euphemism in front of her. Gu Xingyin looked at the man in front of her. In 2 years, the man's appearance hadn't changed much. He was still the same. However, he was a completely different person from the Zhou Bingzhu of 2 years ago. The biggest change should be his temperament, right? Although Zhou Bingzhu 2 years ago was a mature man, his dark eyes always had a little stubbornness that was close to naivety. At that time, Zhou Bingzhu was protected by his parents and brothers. He didn't have to think about anything. He just wanted to be a playboy. At that time, Gu Xingyin could still see Zhou Bingzhu's thoughts from his eyes. But Gu Xingyin couldn't see through the man now. It was still a pair of dark eyes. But when she looked into them, she could only see a bottomless darkness. Even her eyes were about to be absorbed. He now had the confidence of a strategist, as well as the composure brought about by the tempering of time. Gu Xingyin didn't know what he had experienced, but she knew that Zhou Bingzhu must have had a hard time to make a man like this in 2 years. Zhou Bingzhu had been waiting for Gu Xingyin's answer after he said that sentence. But he didn't get the response he wanted for a long time. Looking up, he saw Gu Xingyin's eyes staring blankly. This woman was in a daze when he was saying such an important thing. Zhou Bingzhu felt that he was too stupid to still have an inexplicable expectation for her. If the mountain doesn't come to me, I'll go to the mountain. The most important thing he learned in these 2 years, if you want something, you should never wait for it, you should never wait for it. If you want something, you should fight for it yourself. Since he couldn't get a response from her after waiting for her affectionately, then he had to snatch her. Even if he had to tie her to his side. So, you is a woman, a bad woman. You are a bad woman. If you want to get a bad woman, you can only use some special methods. Gu Shengyin had a bad feeling in her heart. The next second, she felt dizzy. She looked at Zhou Bingzhu in disbelief. You drugged me? Zhou Bingzhu stood up and walked to her side. He reached out his hand and touched her cheek intimately. You are too disobedient. I can't help it. Gu Shengyin couldn't hear the rest of the words. Because her consciousness had completely fallen into a deep sleep. Chapter 1329. Zhou Bingzhu caught Gu Shengyin, who was falling to the ground. He looked at her with a gentle gaze. When he held her, it was as if he was holding the most precious treasure in the world. This time, I won't let you have the chance to leave, he said in a low voice. He carried Gu Shengyin and slowly walked out of the door. When Gu Shengyin woke up, she found herself in a very unfamiliar house. The house was very empty. Other than a big bed that was big enough for 3 or 4 adults to roll around, there was only a thick carpet on the floor. What made Gu Shengyin the most uneasy was that she could not feel the spiritual energy in her body. She could not summon her natal artifact either. System, what happened? Gu Shengyin asked. The system replied, it's obvious that you're under house arrest. Gu Shengyin said. I can see that too. Can you tell me the main point? Where is this place? What's going on with my body? The system said, Zhou Bingzhu drugged you in your room. After you fainted, Zhou Bingzhu brought you back to the capital. Finally, he locked you up here and used a special method to seal your spiritual energy. Gu Shengyin was speechless. However, it was not the time to argue with the system about the way it spoke. She asked, so I'm back in the capital now? The system said, yes, host. Gu Shengyin was a little stunned. Zhou Bingzhu is in the government, right? He can't not know that this kind of illegal imprisonment is illegal, right? The system said, host, please calm down. Illegal imprisonment is only illegal when it's discovered by others. Therefore, as long as no one knew about it, it didn't matter. Gu Shengyin was speechless. Then, the door opened. Zhou Bingzhu walked in wearing a black turtleneck sweater. Zhou Bingzhu, who was wearing the sweater, had a smile on his face. His eyes were gentle and clear. He looked much younger than the people Gu Shengyin had seen before. You're awake? He seemed to be in a good mood. Gu Shengyin picked up her cold persona the moment he walked in. You imprison me? Zhou Bingzhu smiled gently. How is that called imprisonment? I just don't want you to leave me again. Gu Shengyin glared at him. What's wrong with my body? Zhou Bingzhu sat down beside her. Only then did Gu Shengyin realize that she had been changed into soft home clothes. Don't worry, it's just a small seal. It won't harm you. Zhou Bingzhu's, if you don't want me to hate you? She asked the system, what's wrong with Zhou Bingzhu? Why does he look so agitated? The system said, 2 years ago, the woman he liked went missing after he confessed to her. He finally found her after 2 years, but she was cold to him and said that she wanted to be a stranger. That's why he was so agitated. Gu Shengyin was speechless. Now that I think about it, I'm quite a jerk. No, Zhou Bingzhu is the pervert. The system agreed, that's right, Zhou Bingzhu became a pervert because of you. Gu Shengyin was silent. She looked at Zhou Bingzhu, who was staring at her without blinking. She decided to take a soft approach. Chapter 1330. Zhou Bingzhu woke up very early. For more than 2 years, he never wanted to sleep as soundly as he did last night. The person in his arms was still sleeping. He turned his head and saw Gu Shengyin's face nestled in his arms. Her face was still pale, but her whole face softened in her sleep. She didn't have the coldness that kept people thousands of miles away during the day. He couldn't help but lean over and kiss her forehead. She was only so well behaved in her sleep. Thinking back to what happened yesterday, Zhou Bingzhu still couldn't believe it. It went too smoothly. It was like you were ready to fail countless times for an impossible goal, but you succeeded on your first try. Looking at the time, Zhou Bingzhu decided to get up. He nimbly got out of the blanket and carefully covered the sleeping person with the blanket. Only then did he tiptoe out of the room. Zhou Bingzhu was cooking porridge in the kitchen. He was even humming a song in a good mood. This was the skill he learned in the past 2 years because he had imagined living with Jiang Lan countless times. Every morning, lovers would be able to eat breakfast made by themselves. This was a pleasant thing to think about. When he returned to the room with the cooked porridge, Gu Xingyin had already woken up. She was sitting on the bed with the quilt in her arms. Zhou Bingzhu didn't notice her expression and said in a good mood, "Awake? Are you hungry? I cooked porridge for you. Do you want to try it?" Gu Xingyin was seriously reflecting on his actions last night. When he heard Zhou Bingzhu's words, he put on his signature cold face and said, "Zhou Bingzhu, you also got what you wanted last night. When will you let me go?" Zhou Bingzhu's smile froze on his face. He looked at Gu Xingyin in disbelief, which made Gu Xingyin feel that she was the heartless man. She was the one who was bullied. Zhou Bingzhu looked at her cold face. The person who nestled in his arms in the morning was like an illusion. "Jiang Lan, do you think that my kindness to you, my love for you, is just a kind of obsession?" He heard his own voice was extremely calm. Gu Xingyin nodded. "Isn't it?" The way she said those words was too matter-of-fact, and Zhou Bingzhu suddenly had the urge to strangle this person to death. A few minutes ago, he was still thinking about their future together. He had even thought about where the wedding would be held. However, the cold reality slapped him hard in the face. She did not love him at all. Zhou Bingzhu looked at the angry woman and smiled fiercely. "Yes, I am a kind of obsession. How could one night be enough? At least let me sleep enough before you leave." He casually placed the bowl in his hand on the table and quickly turned to leave. Gu Xingyin could even see a trace of embarrassment from that back view. Gu Xingyin was silent for a moment. "System, I feel that I'm too much of a scumbag." The system replied, "Yes, host." Gu Xingyin continued. "I feel that I've really let him down." The system said tentatively, "Then why don't you tell him the truth?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "No. I think he's living very well now. In those 2 years, he's living very well without me." Chapter 1331. The system remained silent. It actually wanted to tell the host that it was better to tell Zhou Bingzhu the truth. Zhou Bingzhu was obviously deeply in love with the host. Only the host was still deceiving herself that Zhou Bingzhu could live well after she left. But the system felt that it was unfair to Zhou Bingzhu to keep it a secret. The system felt that the host was trapped in her feelings and was bewildered. It silently watched its host pick up the bowl of porridge and drink it one mouthful at a time. Inexplicably, the system felt that its host was very pitiful. It thought that as a bystander, it should do something. Zhou Bingzhu was so crazy now. If he was pushed too hard, who knew what he would do? Since that morning, Zhou Bingzhu had not come for 3 days. During this time, Gu Xingyin tried to go out and found that the house was heavily guarded. Gu Xingyin estimated that with her current strength, the possibility of her escaping was 0. However, she had no intention of escaping. She asked tentatively. There were many unfinished blueprints in the place where she used to live. Were those things still there? Miss Zhang's matter was very important. This was the second young master's order. These people did not dare to hide it and reported it to Zhou Bingzhu. Zhou Bingzhu had seen those blueprints before. There were some densely packed formulas and some strange drawings on them. He did not understand it. The people he found also did not know what it was. When he heard that Jiang Lan asked about it, he did not say much and asked someone to send it to her. Gu Xingyin breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she began to focus on the blueprints, Zhou Bingzhu saw a woman. This woman was Yan Zi. Yan Zi did not stand on ceremony and said directly, "Is Jiang Lan here with you?" Zhou Bingzhu did not say anything. Yan Zi's heart was basically certain of her guess. She said, "You captured her, you imprisoned her?" Zhou Bingzhu said, "If you don't have anything important, I will see you out." Yan Zi was afraid that he would do something irreparable to Gu Xingyin, so she quickly said, "Let me tell you something." Seeing that Zhou Bingzhu was unmoved, Yan Zi continued, "It's about Jiang Lan, about her greatest secret." Zhou Bingzhu finally raised his head. When only the two of them were left, Yan Zi finally opened her mouth, "Do you like Jiang Lan, but she never accepted you?" Zhou Bingzhu said coldly, "If this is all you want to say, then I will doubt the decision I just made." Yan Zi saw that he had the intention of beckoning for people to come in. He sighed and finally began to speak slowly. Gu Xingyin was sitting on the woolen carpet, drawing a blueprint. She was very engrossed. When she finally solved a difficult problem, she looked up and saw Zhou Bingzhu standing in front of her, looking at her with a complicated expression. No one knew how long he had been watching. Gu Xingyin said, "System, why didn't you remind me?" The system replied, "I saw that you were too engrossed. I didn't want to disturb your thoughts. In fact, it was a little guilty." If it was not for its hint, Yan Zi would not have told him the truth so quickly. Fortunately, Gu Xingyin did not care about this. She did not get up. Instead, she looked at Zhou Bingzhu coldly. "What is second young master doing here? Do you want to sleep with me again?" Chapter 1332. Gu Xingyin looked into Zhou Bingzhu's eyes. The man's dark pupils were full of firmness and affection. Gu Xingyin knew that what he said was true. But Zhou Bingzhu. Gu Xingyin looked at him and said, "If I really like you, then I definitely can't tolerate you dying because of me. If I don't like you, then it would be too unjust for you to suffer because of me." Zhou Bingzhu said in a deep voice, "Jiang Lan, don't avoid the question. You just need to answer me. Have you ever liked me?" He gave her so much pressure that Gu Xingyin felt that she could not avoid it. She lowered her eyes, "No, I have never liked you." Then she heard Zhou Bingzhu sigh. She thought it was really over. In the next moment, he fell into a warm and soft embrace once again. "You are a liar, Jiang Lan." Zhou Bingzhu's voice sounded in her ear, "But you can't lie to me." Gu Xingyin looked up and saw Zhou Bingzhu's eyes were full of smiles. He gently kissed her cheek, "Don't worry. Even if it's just to see you more, I will take care of my life." He got up and went out. When he entered the door again, he brought Gu Xingyin a glass of water. "This is the antidote." Gu Xingyin drank the thing in the glass without any doubt. "You can go, Jiang Lan." Gu Xingyin looked at him blankly. Zhou Bingzhu seemed to have changed back to the elegant and gentle young master of a rich family. He looked at her with a smile, "But this time, don't stay too far away from me. Let me watch you and know your news, okay?" Gu Xingyin's eyes suddenly turned red. She held back the sourness at the tip of her nose and nodded, "Okay." With her things, Gu Xingyin was sent back to her house in the afternoon. The house she lived in the capital 2 years ago had been cleaned in advance. It was obvious that someone had been taking care of it in the past 2 years. She didn't know how Zhou Bingzhu did it. Gu Xingyin returned to the capital without permission and disappeared for so many days, but no one said anything. But Yan Zi came to see her once. "I came to apologize. I'm sorry, Jiang Lan. I told others about your matter without permission." Yan Zi was obviously very guilty. But Gu Xingyin didn't blame her. She was obviously driven into a dead end before, thinking that what she did was the best for both of them. Thinking about it carefully, if that was really the case, in the end, it was very likely that the two of them would be covered in wounds. "But I didn't dare to tell you anything again. I don't think I'd dare to tell you anything again." How smart was Yan Zi? When he heard this, he knew that this matter was over. Actually, she was quite curious about the matter between Jiang and Jiang. In the past 2 years, second young master's reputation was like thunder in the capital. Although he was young, his methods were not immature at all. He even deserved to be called cruel and merciless. She didn't know how the cold Jiang Lan conquered that man. However, Gu Xingyin didn't like to share the matter between her and her lover with others. In the end, Yan Zi could only leave resentfully. Gu Xingyin continued to study her drawings. She was very close to success. But the next day after Gu Xingyin returned home, she heard the news of Zhou Bingzhu's car accident. It was over. Good night, everyone. After you read the article, remember to vote for Gao Lingji. Chapter 1333. At that time, she had just finished an important calculation and turned on the TV to relax. However, the first thing she saw was the news of the second son of the Zhou family's car accident. For a moment, Gu Xingyin felt that the decision she made 2 days ago was a little shaken. Zhou Bingzhu was a lucky person in this world. Logically speaking, an accident like a car accident shouldn't have happened to him. Gu Xingyin knew that it was because of her. He had been too close to her a while ago. She sat on the sofa in a daze and forgot the purpose of turning on the TV. Soon, her phone rang. I'm fine. Don't worry. Also, don't blame yourself. This man must have sent her a message as soon as he reacted, telling her not to worry too much. In the hospital, Zhou Bingzhu had a cast on one hand and was fiddling with his phone with the other. The car accident wasn't serious. There were 2 people in his car. The secretary was fine, but his left hand was fractured. It wasn't a serious injury. He would be fine after recuperating for more than a month. Second young master. The secretary sitting beside him looked at him and hesitated. You should rest well now. Zhou Bingzhu's phone rang with a text message notification. Zhou Bingzhu saw the words, rest well, on it, and the corners of his lips couldn't help but curl into a smile. When Zhou Bingzhu's injuries were mostly healed, Gu Xingyin finally handed in the blueprint in her hand. There was no doubt that the thing she handed in caused a sensation in the entire special department. After countless experts and masters personally tested it, they finally confirmed the practicality of this magic-absorbing array. Jiang Lan, the leader, who had always been very gentle and kind, showed such a fanatical expression for the first time. He looked at Gu Xingyin as if he was looking at a rare treasure. You've made a great contribution this time. Wasn't it a great contribution? If this thing could completely solve the influence of the monsters on this world, Jiang Lan could be recorded in a special file. As one of the highest level people in this country, Zhou Bingzhu naturally knew what Gu Xingyin had done. It was still an anonymous message. I'm proud of you. This was the tacit contact between the 2 of them. Gu Xingyin thought for a moment and replied with a smile. On the other side, Zhou Bingzhu smiled gently at the phone. 5 years later. There was no longer any threat of monsters in this world. Those exorcists had also forgotten their previous identities and disappeared into the streets and alleys. Some people started businesses and became famous entrepreneurs. Some people got married and had children, becoming ordinary people in the city. In short, everyone was living the life they wanted. Yan Zi was now a very famous actress. As for Gu Xingyin, she did not follow her previous decision and leave this world after the mana absorption array was completed. She fell in love with traveling around the world. Sometimes, when she reached a place she liked, she would stop and live there for a few months. Every time she went to a place, she would send an address to a number that would never have a name. Occasionally, she would send a photo. She had promised that man that she would stay where he could see her and let him know of her news. It was also good to spend the rest of their lives watching over each other like this. Chapter 1334. Lu Yi was a reporter for the National Daily. Today, she specially put on exquisite makeup and was going to interview a big shot. Speaking of this, even Lu Yi felt that the newspaper was very lucky. Originally, she just wanted to give it a try. She didn't expect that the person would directly agree to the interview request. The second son of the Zhou family, the most powerful family in the capital. This was the name that outsiders would use when talking about Zhou Bingzhu a few years ago. But now, no one would call him that. Mr. Zhou, Minister Zhou. He used his own ability to let others truly recognize his achievements, instead of relying on the Zhou family's halo. The interview was held at Zhou Bingzhu's home. Lu Yi was a little excited. This young Mr. Zhou seemed to have just turned 36 years old, and he was already a real power figure in the country. Such an achievement, even his brother, the eldest son of the Zhou family, did not achieve at this age. Of course, what caught the attention of the young ladies the most was that Mr. Zhou, who was young, held a high position, and had an extremely handsome face, was still single. Welcome. It was the first time Lu Yi saw Mr. Zhou Bingzhu so closely. Because he was at home, he did not wear a suit and tie as he usually did in the news. Instead, he wore a very homely light gray sweater and close-fitting casual pants. This also made him look younger. He did not look like a person in his 30s at all. Lu Yi sighed. The house was also very clean, and there were no traces of a second person living there. It seemed that the rumor that this person had been single all this time was true. The chat with Mr. Zhou Bingzhu was very interesting. This was what Lu Yi thought. At first, she was a little nervous, but later, she completely relaxed. He was not as serious as she imagined. He was even a little humorous and very knowledgeable. Chatting with him was a very enjoyable thing. In just half an hour, Lu Yi felt that she was about to fall under the suit pants of this top bachelor. After asking some more official questions, Lu Yi finally began to ask about some more personal topics, such as personal feelings. We all know that Mr. Zhou does not have a lover for the time being. I wonder what Mr. Zhou's requirements for a future partner are like? Zhou Bingzhu was obviously not surprised by such a question. He smiled and said, I believe that many people have questions about this. In fact, it's not that I don't have a lover. Oh. Lu Yi obviously did not expect that she would be able to dig up such information. Zhou Bingzhu's beautiful black eyes curved. I've loved someone deeply since a long time ago. Counting the days, it's been more than 10 years. I love her very much, so strictly speaking, I'm not single. I don't have any requirements for my future partner, because she is the best in my heart. Lu Yi listened to his words and looked at the undisguised gentleness on his face. Envy flashed in her heart. To be loved by a person like you, your lover must be very happy. Zhou Bingzhu turned to look at her and smiled. No, I think meeting her is the greatest happiness in my life. Lu Yi felt that if her report was published, countless girls would be heartbroken. The next day, Gu Xingyin looked at the eye-catching headline of the National Daily and the readers, word by word, smiled. System, I'm so glad right now. Back then, we didn't leave him alone in this world. Chapter 1335. Where there were people, there would be jianghu. In every jianghu, there would be a demon sect. In every demon sect, there would be a sect leader with exceptional martial arts and a sinister reputation. Gu Xingyin had become such a sect leader of the demon sect. At this moment, she was lying on a huge and luxurious bed made entirely of silk. This was a waterside pavilion, and the outside of the pavilion was covered with a layer of fog-like gauze. It fluttered slightly with the breeze, and ordinary people couldn't see the scene inside. After all, as the sect leader of the demon sect, her equipment was different from others. Gu Xingyin, who had just received the system's memory, indicated that it was not easy to be the sect leader of the demon sect. Why? No matter in which story, the demon sect was a cannon fodder existence. And the sect leader of the demon sect did not seem to have a good ending. As for why the sect leader of the demon sect named Wu Yili was the main character, the reason was simple. Since she finished her apprenticeship at the age of 24, she single-handedly challenged the entire Central Plains Wulin. No one was her match. She was clearly so powerful, so why did she feel unsatisfied? Why would Gu Xingyin come here? This Wu Yili was actually bitten by the poisonous ghost unicorn snake when she was fighting for a rare medicinal herb. She was accidentally poisoned and fainted. When she woke up, she forgot about the past. After being poisoned, she was saved by a righteous person. The girl who saved the sect leader of the demon sect was called Mingyu. This was a very vulgar and elegant name. The bright moon shone brightly in the courtyard. There was once a famous wanderer who said, if a girl dared to be called Mingyu, she would definitely be a beauty if she was not an ugly girl. In every jianghu, there would be a beauty called Mingyu. Mingyu was not only a beauty, but also a beauty with a strong background. She was the junior sister of the current Wulin alliance leader Zhu Yu, the daughter of the Wulin master Qingzhen. That was why she recognized Wu Yili. Not only did she recognize Wu Yili, she also did something big. She put a gu in Wu Yili, who did not remember anything, and ordered her to massacre her own sect. The blood and screams of the sect members awakened Wu Yili's memories. She used all of her self-control to cut her own throat with the sword in her hand. However, in that battle, the devil's sect was almost completely annihilated. After watching this scene, Gu Xingyin naturally understood why Wu Yili was so upset. To be honest, Gu Xingyin never thought that the so-called righteous path was justice and the devil path was evil. Why was the demon sect called the demon sect? This was because the demonic sect was not native to the Central Plains. They had traveled all the way from the Great Snow Mountain of the Western region. From the very beginning, they had also wanted to get along harmoniously with the Chinese martial arts world, but they could not tolerate them. In the end, the demonic sect settled down in Mount Wudu in the west and rarely stepped into the martial arts world of the Central Plains. 20 years ago, a traitor of the devil cult sneaked into the Central Plains and committed countless murders. In the end, it was the former cult master of the devil cult who chased after him for 1,000 miles before he was able to clean up the sect. However, the demonic sect took the blame for the brutal and indiscriminate slaughter of the innocent. It was also from then on that the demonic sect became an existence that everyone in the martial arts world of the Central Plains despised. Gu Xingyin sneered, "What is the right path? What was the evil path? Is it the right path or the devil path? It does not depend on which sect you are from, but on what you have done." From her point of view, most of the people in the demonic sect were simple-minded people. Compared to the righteous path, they were much better. Chapter 1336. Light music could be heard from outside the waterside pavilion. It was Wu Yeli's servant girl playing the guqin. Gu Xingyin sighed comfortably. Let's not talk about other things, but when it comes to enjoyment, this cult master is very qualified. Reporting to sect leader, the cold pond snow lotus is about to bloom. Does sect leader want to go? A figure rushed in from outside and knelt outside the waterside pavilion where Gu Xingyin was. Cold pond snow lotus? Wasn't that the elixir that Wu Yeli lost in the original plot and was bitten by her companion, the ghost unicorn snake? Gu Xingyin's red lips opened slightly. Of course I want to go. Elderly, go and make preparations. Personally select a few people to go with me. Yes. This cold pond snow lotus was a good item. Not only was it the main ingredient for refining the highest grade small revitalizing pill, it was also very effective in treating body heat. Gu Xingyin didn't have much use for it, but she knew that Qing Mingyue's father, Qingzhen, had suffered from qi deviation during cultivation. His body heat was accumulating and he urgently needed this cold pond snow lotus to relieve his injuries. As a qualified demon sect leader, Gu Xingyin thought, if I don't spoil your plans, who else will I spoil? If she was in a good mood, she would interfere with the righteous martial arts world. This was in line with the demon sect style. In the middle of a 30 feet square pool, a jade white lotus flower was in the middle of a budding. This was the cold pond snow lotus. Only when the cold pond snow lotus fully bloomed would its medicinal effect be at its strongest. So there were many people by the pond, waiting for this moment to arrive. Zhu Yu was also among this group of people. As the young and promising martial arts alliance leader, most of the people here knew him and were on good terms with him. This time, he was entrusted by old Master Cheng to obtain this cold pond snow lotus. Many of the people present knew about this. But in front of benefits, their friendship was nothing. Cold pond snow lotus was something that could only be found by chance. Whether one could obtain it or not depended on one's own ability. Before the snow lotus had even bloomed, the crisp sound of a silver bell could be heard coming from afar. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw 4 extremely beautiful white-clothed female servants carrying a very light sedan chair over. Behind the small sedan, there were a few strangely dressed people. "They're from the demonic sect." Someone couldn't help but exclaim. Wasn't this the rumored devil sect with such extravagance and attire? Most of the people who cried out were hotheads who had not been in Jianghu for long. Most of them were secretly afraid. Those maidservants just now were carrying the palanquin as if it was nothing. They didn't seem to be walking very fast, but in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of him. Just based on her qigong alone, she was considered to be one of the best in the entire martial arts world. Yet, she was only a servant girl carrying a sedan chair? Not to mention the unfathomable people behind them, just the identity of the person in the palanquin was enough to make them unable to relax. The 4 beauties surrounded the small white muslin sedan. The legendary cult master of the demonic sect seemed to have such extravagance. At the mention of the cult master of the demonic sect, everyone's expression darkened. 1 year ago, she challenged the entire Chinese world of martial artists alone with her sword, and countless old seniors who were highly respected lost to her. Those seniors kept their mouths shut about this matter, so the bystanders had no way of knowing the details. They only knew that the cult master of the demonic sect was a woman. They didn't know anything else. Therefore, other than being afraid, many people were also curious. How did the rumored cult master of the demonic sect look like? Chapter 1337. Zhu Yu was also very curious. A year ago, he was injured and went to the Miracle Physician Valley to recuperate. He missed the grand event of the demon sect leader challenging the martial arts world of the Central Plains. Because of this, the martial arts world people still said that the demon sect leader could be so arrogant because their chief was not around. Otherwise, how could a woman like her be allowed to behave so atrociously? But Zhu Yu did not think so. Because his master, who was once the top martial arts master of the Central Plains, had also been defeated by the demon sect leader. Moreover, his master had told him personally that the demon sect leader was unrivaled in martial arts at a young age. Although he was very confident in his eldest disciple, he did not think that his eldest disciple could defeat her. Zhu Yu heard from his master that he did not seem to hate the demon sect leader like other martial arts people. Instead, he seemed to hold her in high esteem. Hearing his question, his master only smiled and said, "Good and evil do not know how to argue with words. We need to distinguish between good and evil with our eyes and brains. In my eyes, this cult master of the demonic sect is just a young junior who pursues martial arts." His master rarely expressed his admiration for someone, especially someone who had defeated him. Therefore, Zhu was very curious about the demon sect leader. A servant girl pulled open the curtain of the white sand sedan and a figure walked out. Hiss. Gasps could be heard from the crowd. No one expected the demon sect leader, who had defeated many famous martial arts masters of the Central Plains, to be so young and so beautiful. No, using the word beautiful to describe her was not enough. After all, there were so many beautiful women in the world. However, to be able to find someone as beautiful as the demon sect leader in front of them, the crowd could not help but think of the top beauty of the martial arts world, Fairy Mingyu. Those who had seen Fairy Mingyu before could not help but compare the two of them. Then, they realized, compared to the demon sect leader, who was overshadowed just by standing there, Fairy Mingyu paled in comparison. The moment that person appeared, Zhu Yu's eyes were glued to her. It was not because of her beauty. The top beauty of the martial arts world, Qing Mingyu, was Zhu Yu's junior sister. However, Zhu Yu had never treated Qing Mingyu differently because of this. But this person was different. The moment he saw her, Zhu Yu felt that he must have seen her somewhere before. Furthermore, he seemed to be staring at her from afar for a very, very long time. That kind of unwillingness of not being able to have her, of not being able to hold her in his arms, instantly surged from his sealed soul, causing his eyes to turn red. He wanted her. He wanted to hug her, he wanted to kiss her, he wanted to do something even more inappropriate. This isn't right. Zhu Yu suddenly became clear-headed. He recited the clear heart incantation and tried his best to calm himself down. Just now, what was with that sudden surge of emotion? Moreover, what was with that inexplicable sense of familiarity and closeness when he looked at that person? Coincidentally, the cult master of the demonic sect seemed to have noticed his gaze and looked over from afar. Seeing him, she seemed to be surprised for a moment, then slowly revealed a smile to him. Her smile was like the rising sun breaking through the clouds. It was so beautiful that it was threatening. Zhu Yu heard the infatuated sighs of the people around him. For some reason, this made him feel slightly disgusted. Chapter 1338. It was as if they did not expect the other party to be such a young and beautiful lady. The voices of the righteous faction, who wanted to gain the upper hand by a show of strength, became much quieter. Is this the leader of the demonic sect? We were the first to discover the frost pond snow lotus. First come, first served. Isn't it immoral for the demonic sect to come and take a share of the loot? Gu Xingyin looked at the person who spoke. The system gave her the information in her mind, a deputy leader of a second-rate sect. Even his introduction was only a short line. He was probably cannon fodder. Gu Xingyin looked at him. Her face no longer had the smile she showed to Zhu Yu. She opened her mouth and said, "Immoral? The location of the Frost Pond Snow Lotus is still my demonic sect's territory. All of you came here without my permission. Is this immoral?" That person was instantly speechless. Zhu Yu only felt that this person's voice was cold and crisp. It was even better than the sound of jade colliding. He secretly sighed. There was actually such a perfect person at this time. She actually ignored the two people's argument. The righteous faction saw that the alliance leader was deep in thought and did not intend to speak up for this matter. They thought that he had other considerations. They suppressed their thoughts and waited for Zhu Yu to speak. Gu Xingyin opened her mouth. All of you are from the Jianghu. There are some things that everyone knows. Don't talk about immoral with us at this time. When she said the word immoral, the ridicule on her face was obvious. Everyone could hear the sneer in her voice. Treasures of heaven and earth belong to those who are capable in the first place. Let's speak with our strength. Talking with words won't solve the problem. This was simply a blatant mockery. Alliance leader, this leader of the demonic sect is really... That person wanted to say that she was going too far and asked the alliance leader to make a decision. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yu spoke up. Leader is right. Let's speak with our strength. He cupped his hands at Gu Xingyin from afar. Gu Xingyin looked at him with a gentler expression. You must be alliance leader Zhu Yu? I heard that alliance leader Zhu is the most powerful person in the Central Plains. I will definitely pay you a visit next time. He was indeed a martial arts fanatic. Zhu Yu cupped his hands and said with a smile, I dare not claim to be the number one in the martial arts world of the Central Plains, but if Cult Master comes, Zhu Yu will definitely welcome you with open arms. The people from the Chinese world of martial artists were all dumbfounded. What kind of development was this? Weren't the Central Plains and the Devil Cult mortal enemies? Why did the Alliance head seem to be chatting happily with this sect leader? Could this be the Alliance Master's special strategy? The more they thought about it, the more they felt that this was the case. Little did they know that while the people of the Central Plains were surprised, the people of the demonic cult were even more surprised. That person just now was the cult master? How could he talk to the Chinese martial artists so calmly? Didn't the cult leader hate those people of the martial arts world the most? Also, if they weren't mistaken, the sect leader was smiling just now, right? The sect leader actually smiled. Wait, they were looking at the legendary Wulin Alliance master, Zhu Yu. Yes, his long eyebrows slanted to his temples, his starry eyes were full of spirit, his forehead was full, his lips were red, and his teeth were white. He was indeed a first-class handsome man. Could it be that the sect leader had taken a fancy to this brat's good looks? The elders following behind the sedan carefully thought about it and realized that in the entire devil cult, there was indeed no man who was more handsome than this Wulin Alliance master. They silently felt that they seemed to have found out something incredible. Chapter 1339. Although everyone had their own thoughts, all of them were focused on the cold pond snow lotus. When the bud of the cold pond snow lotus trembled slightly and was about to bloom, they all began to move. There were even those who were confident in their abilities who directly flew up and wanted to pluck the snow lotus into their arms. Gu Xingyin stood quietly by the side without moving. In the original plot, Wuyi was one of these people who were confident in their abilities. She was also the first one to be poisoned. "Sect Master, are we not going?" Elderly, who was standing behind her, asked. Gu Xingyin shook her head. "Don't be anxious. This cold pond snow lotus is not something that can be obtained so easily." Just as she finished speaking, she heard a series of screams. Around the snow lotus, there was a jet of green liquid spurting out from the cold pond snow lotus. Those martial artists who were in the lead were unable to use their strength in the air and were sprayed all over. Everyone could clearly see that a layer of frost had formed on the bodies of those who had been sprayed with the emerald green liquid. In an instant, they had turned into lifeless ice sculptures. That was the cold poison of the jade-scaled snake. Those who had stronger internal energy could only barely suppress the poison in their bodies and made it to the shore. Looking at their complexions, it was only a matter of time. Gu Xingyin pondered for a moment. Even with Wuyi Li's strong internal energy, she was still poisoned by the cold poison of the jade-scaled snake. After barely suppressing the poison in her body, she ended up with a memory disorder and a mental disorder. What more these people? Like Gu Xingyin, there were a few people who did not move. It was just that these people did not understand what was causing trouble in the cold pond snow lotus and looked on in shock. Soon, they knew what it was. A huge jade green head emerged from the cold pond snow lotus. The jade phosphorus snake's head alone was the size of a bowl, and its body was probably as thick as an adult's arm. Its lower body was submerged in the cold pond, so no one could see how long its body was. At this moment, the jade phosphorus snake was sticking out its bright red tongue. Its pair of golden eyes were coldly staring at the uninvited guests on the shore. "What the hell is this?" someone from Wulin asked in a trembling voice. Seeing this jade-scaled snake, everyone understood that the culprit behind the emerald green venom was most likely this thing. Such a potent poison, on the spot, there were people who wanted to retreat. "Elders, hold the formation for me." Gu Xingyin cast a glance at the martial artist across her and spoke. Knowing that there was nothing they could do to help, the rest of the demonic sect members hurriedly agreed. With a clang, Gu Xingyin unsheathed her sword. She flew up and headed straight for the jade-scaled snake in the pond. The jade-scaled snake did not expect that a human would dare to challenge its dignity. It immediately coiled around the human. Just like that, the human and the snake began to fight. Zhu Yu's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. Without another word, he also flew up and joined the battle. Those martial artists are so shameless. Seeing Sect Master fighting with the snake, they are afraid that they will be the first. The hot-tempered elderly immediately scolded. Obviously, the martial artists also thought that their sect master did not want the demonic sect to be the first. Chapter 1340. Of course, they would find excuses for Zhu Yu. In their hearts, the Alliance Master's actions were very gentlemanly. If he was really a despicable person, wouldn't it be better for him to take advantage of the situation when the demon sect leader and the snake were both injured? No one knew that Zhu Yu was so eager to go forward because he was afraid that Gu Xingyin would be injured by the jade-scaled snake alone. Zhu Yu didn't know why he was so crazy. He only knew that he couldn't let her out of his sight. He couldn't let her get hurt. With Zhu Yu's participation, the pressure on Gu Xingyin was greatly reduced. This jade-scaled snake had lived for many years, but it didn't seem to be defeated by an expert like Wu Yeli. Gu Xingyin didn't intend to take its life. It was a snake that was cultivating peacefully. Suddenly, a group of people came and disturbed it. They even wanted to snatch the thing it was guarding. It didn't make sense. "I won't go easy on you," Gu Xingyin said to Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu smiled. "I've said it before. We'll rely on our own abilities. If you can get it, it means that it belongs to you." Gu Xingyin was very pleased to hear this. The men in this world were surprisingly tactful. Seeing that Zhu Yu was entangled with the jade-scaled snake, Gu Xingyin suddenly smiled. The Alliance Master is indeed a gentleman. I won't hold back then. She tapped her feet on the water surface. While Zhu Yu was entangled with the jade-scaled snake, she went straight for the blooming cold pond snow lotus. The martial artists who were watching the battle scolded the demon sect leader for taking advantage of the situation. It wasn't a gentleman's action. The demon sect didn't dare to show any weakness. They retorted that their sect leader wasn't a gentleman. The martial artists who were speechless were speechless. They had never seen such a shameless person who was so self-righteous. However, when they saw the fairy-like figure in white floating in the cold pond snow lotus, they couldn't help but think that he wasn't a gentleman. Zhu Yu looked at her taking advantage of him, but he was not angry. He just shook his head and smiled helplessly. The jade-scaled snake, on the other hand, ignored Zhu Yu and headed straight for Gu Xingyin when it saw that someone was going to pluck the treasure it had guarded for so many years. Be careful. Zhu Yu was shocked and immediately shouted. Gu Xingyin had just plucked the cold pond snow lotus when she felt a gust of wind blowing by her ear. She only had time to turn her head sideways before something brushed past her hair. Then, she saw the huge head of the jade-scaled snake biting towards her. He couldn't hide anymore. Gu Xingyin pointed the long sword in her hand. She was prepared to pay the price of being bitten by the jade phosphorus snake and teach it a lesson. The sound of sharp teeth biting into flesh was heard, but it was not Gu Xingyin's body. With just one glance, Gu Xingyin's eyes turned red. The sword that was originally aimed at the snake's tail suddenly changed direction and went straight for the jade phosphorus snake's weak spot. Damn it! Gu Xingyin didn't care about the jade phosphorus snake whose head had been chopped off by her sword. She carried Zhu Yu and went ashore. In just a short while, Zhu Yu's lips had turned black. She knew that the jade phosphorus snake was poisonous, but she didn't expect it to be so poisonous. The martial artists on the shore also rushed over. They couldn't see the battle in the cold pond snow lotus clearly and didn't know what had happened. They only saw the demon sect's master carrying someone out. It was their Wulin Alliance master. Chapter 1341. Gu Xingyin half-knelt on the ground. Her hands did not stop moving as she used her inner energy to crush the cold pond snow lotus that she had just obtained and fed it to Zhu Yu. This was the most precious cold pond snow lotus. Not to mention the people from the demon sect, even the people from the martial arts world felt that this demon sect master was really generous to use such a precious item to save the enemy. Wu Yeli's face already had the advantage. Coupled with her actions, the group of people from the martial arts world instantly felt that the demon sect was not as evil as the rumors said. Gu Xingyin glanced at them and said lightly, "It's not that I'm so kind. It's just that just now, Alliance Master Zhu Yu was injured on my behalf. I don't want to owe anyone a favor." As she spoke, she fed the most precious cold pond snow lotus that she had just obtained into Zhu Yu's mouth. Little did she know that after hearing her words, the people from the martial arts world actually had a better impression of her. She was not willing to claim credit for doing a good deed and knew how to repay kindness. This demon sect master's character was really noble. When Gu Xingyin finished feeding Zhu Yu the medicine and got up, she saw the group of people from the martial arts world looking at her with sparkling eyes. It was as if she was some rare saint in the world. Gu Xingyin was speechless. She was a little frightened by their gazes. She did not know what this group of people was thinking. Zhu Yu's appearance was scary, but Gu Xingyin knew that in this world, the medicine that could restrain the poison of the jade phosphorus snake was the cold pond snow lotus that accompanied it. With this stalk of snow lotus, nothing would happen to Zhu Yu even if he wanted to. She looked around and felt that there was nothing for her to do here. She did not say anything else and left with the disciples of the demon sect behind her. The group of people from the martial arts world looked at the Alliance Master who was lying on the ground and had not regained consciousness. They then looked at their fellow martial arts compatriots who had died from the poison of the jade phosphorus snake. They were at a loss. Why did they come here? The cold pond snow lotus was obtained by the demon sect and ended up in their Alliance Master's stomach. They were still fine, but they had returned empty-handed. Those unlucky fellow Taoists had instead lost their lives for nothing. However, in the martial arts world, life and death were not in the hands of others. They wanted to fight for this treasure, so they could not blame others if they lost their lives. Gu Xingyin sat in the small white muslin sedan. Behind him came Elder Li's somewhat puzzled voice. Sect Master, this subordinate doesn't understand. Why did you feed all of the cold pond snow lotus to the Wulian Alliance chief? Elder Li also knew a thing or two about medicine. Back then, he knew that the Wulian Alliance master had profound inner strength. Even if he was poisoned by a snake, at most half a stalk of snow lotus would be enough to detoxify him. It was impossible for the sect leader not to understand this, yet he purposely gave the entire precious treasure to the Wulian Alliance master. Gu Xingyin said faintly, the cold pond snow lotus is of no use to me. Didn't those people from the martial arts world of the Central Plains want this thing very much? The things that they tried so hard to snatch are just things that can be casually given away in my eyes. I guess their feelings at this moment are very complicated, right? Elder Li pondered for a moment and suddenly felt admiration for his sect master. She could actually think of this move. This slap in the face was really satisfying. Actually, Gu Xingyin still had two reasons that she did not mention. Firstly, Zhu was completely one of her family members. No matter how precious the cold pond snow lotus was, Gu Xingyin did not feel the slightest bit of heartache for feeding it to him. Secondly, Qing Mingyue's father, Qing Zhen, still had not found a suitable treatment for the heat poison in his body. Currently, only the cold pond snow lotus could give it a try. Unfortunately, there was only one stalk of cold pond snow lotus in this world. Now, there was not even one stalk left. Gu Xingyin did not have a good impression of Qing Zhen, who had endlessly indulged his daughter and even covered up for her to commit murder. Now, the only thing in this world that could save him was already gone. Would Qing Zhen be so angry that he would vomit blood after hearing this news? Chapter 1342. The cold pond was not far from Mount Wudu. Gu Xingyin and the rest quickly returned to the Devil's Sect. The next day, when Gu Xingyin was resting in the pavilion, a subordinate came to report that an unknown person had barged into Mount Wudu. That person's martial arts were so powerful that even the experts in the sect could not stop him. He was suspected to be the leader of the martial arts world, Zhu Yu. Gu Xingyin opened her eyes. System. The system immediately knew what she meant. After a while, it replied, yes, the person who barged in is Zhu Yu. Gu Xingyin tapped her chin with her finger and said slowly, go and invite him here. Yes. Soon, someone brought Zhu Yu, who was wearing a blue robe, to her. Gu Xingyin looked at him. His body was focused and his eyes were bright. It was obvious that he was in good condition. The jade phosphorus snake's poison had been removed. Her gaze suddenly froze. Although Zhu Yu's eyes were bright and full of energy, upon closer inspection, there was a hint of confusion in them. This was definitely not the gaze that Zhu Yu, who was always confident in everything, should have. All of you, leave. The music stopped and the servants all left. Only Gu Xingyin and Zhu Yu were left. Zhu Yu only felt that there must be something very attractive in the pavilion in front of him. His heart was pure. Since he wanted it, he did not hesitate to approach it. The layers of curtains were lifted, and Zhu Yu saw the person who was half leaning on the soft couch. Before seeing this person, Zhu Yu had thought countless times about what the person he wanted to see so badly would look like. On seeing this person, the anxious longing in his heart subsided. She should be like this. Gu Xingyin saw this person standing there and looking at her in a daze. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. Leader Zhu, do you have something important to discuss with the Devil's Sect? Leader? Was she talking about him? Zhu Yu frowned. He only knew that when he woke up, he seemed to have forgotten a lot of things. At that time, he was in an inn, and there was a strong desire in his heart to find someone. Thus, he followed his desire and came here. When he saw the woman before him, he felt that the restlessness in his body had completely calmed down. Obviously, this woman was the one he was looking for. Thinking of something, Zhu Yu's face suddenly turned slightly red. Could this woman be the one he liked? Gu Shengyin saw that he didn't react after hearing her words and only stared at her in a daze. Even his ears were red. She was even more certain that something was wrong with this person. She was a little anxious. In a flash, she appeared in front of Zhu Yu and placed her hand on his wrist. The meridian was a vital point. When Zhu Yu sensed that someone was approaching, his body instinctively took precautions. But at that moment, a fragrant wind blew over. Looking at the woman standing in front of him with a worried frown, he quietly relaxed his body and allowed her to take his pulse. This person wouldn't harm him. He was so sure in his heart. He was slightly taller than her, so when he lowered his head, he happened to be able to see her lowered and serious eyes, as well as the exposed snowy skin on her neck. His heart was itching to move. He wanted to hug her. After Gu Shengyin finished taking Zhu Yu's pulse, she did not sense anything wrong. Just as she was about to raise her head to ask him, she was suddenly embraced by a warm embrace. Chapter 1343. Gu Shengyin was astonished. Who was Zhu Yu? He was the leader of the martial arts circle and was widely acknowledged as a gentleman. Why would he do something so abrupt? She raised her head and looked into Zhu Yu's eyes. It was a pair of beautiful eyes. When he looked at her, his eyes were filled with pure joy, like the countless stars shining in the distant night sky. Zhu Yu? Gu Shengyin called out hesitantly. Zhu Yu did not let go of her. He asked doubtfully, "Is my name Zhu Yu?" He wasn't a suspicious person, but he wasn't a fool who would casually reveal his secret either. If it was in front of others, Zhu Yu would definitely not reveal the fact that he could not remember anything. But in front of this person, he would not hide anything. He did not know where his confidence came from, but he was sure that this person would not hurt him. Hearing Zhu Yu's words, Gu Shengyin's doubts were confirmed. It seemed that this was the side effect of the jade phosphorus snake's poison. Even though she had used the antidote to remove the poison in time, he was still inevitably affected. But she did not know how long it would take for him to recover from the symptoms of amnesia. But there were more important things at hand. Gu Shengyin pointed at herself and then at Zhu Yu. "Do you know what the relationship between the two of us is?" Zhu Yu was obviously very interested in this. He tilted his head and thought for a while. Lovers? Actually, Zhu Yu knew that it was impossible. The person in front of him obviously had a high status in this place. If they were really lovers, they would not have encountered such a big obstacle when they were going up the mountain. But there was a voice in his heart that kept telling him that she was his lover. So, he answered her like this. Hearing this answer, Gu Shengyin snorted and laughed out loud. When she smiled, Zhu Yu, who had been paying attention to her, felt his mood lighten up along with her smile. That cold face was not suitable for her. She should be smiling in his arms all the time. Gu Shengyin raised her head and looked at Zhu Yu. After losing his memory, this man was so straightforward that he was adorable. She said with a smile, "Then I'll tell you. You're the Wuling Alliance chief of the Wuling world of the Central Plains, while I'm the cult leader of the devil cult that everyone fears. We are not lovers. On the contrary, we are natural enemies." Zhu Yu did not even shift his gaze away from her. He hugged her loosely and couldn't help but lower his head to sniff her hair. His tone was relaxed. "I don't remember anything. What you said has nothing to do with me now. All I know is that I'm here now, hugging you, and feeling very happy." Gu Shengyin laughed. Then, without warning, Zhu Yu picked him up. Zhu Yu frowned as he looked at her bare feet. His eyes were filled with disapproval. "The ground is cold. No matter how strong you are, you should take care of your body." He easily carried her onto the soft couch and personally wiped the dust off her feet with a snow-white silk handkerchief. After asking carefully, he found a pair of white socks and helped her put them on. Gu Shengyin supported her chin and looked at him. "The Wuling Alliance chief personally helped me put on my socks. If this gets out, who knows how many people's jaws will drop." Zhu Yu held her feet gently. "I'm not the Wuling Alliance chief. I'm just a man who admires you." Chapter 1344. Gu Xingyin blinked and looked at him. Aren't you afraid that I will find a reason to get rid of you, my biggest enemy, before you regain your memory? Zhu Yu was sitting next to her. He smiled faintly and asked, will you do that? Gu Xingyin pretended to ponder. I need to think about it. Zhu Yu smiled. I think you won't. Seeing Gu Xingyin looking at him, Zhu Yu smiled and said, if you don't have feelings for me, you would have thrown me out the first time I hugged you. He had only lost his memory, not his brain. When he hugged the person in front of him because he could not control his emotions, her shock and stiffness did not escape his eyes. This meant that this was the first time they had been so intimate. But she did not push him away. This realization made Zhu Yu feel very good. Maybe the two of them had feelings for each other, but they did not say it out loud. If that was the case, Zhu Yu was grateful that he had lost his memory. Without his memories, he did not have the slightest awareness of his responsibilities as the chief of the martial arts world. Gu Xingyin looked at his confident expression and felt a little naughty. She deliberately asked, you are the chief of the martial arts world, but you have stayed in the devil cult's territory for so long. Aren't you afraid that someone will hurt your reputation? I know very well how many vile people are hiding in the martial arts world of the Central Plains. Zhu Yu heard this and said lightly, what does it matter? At most, I will not be the chief of the martial arts world. Gu Xingyin loved to see him like this, but she still said, you don't have any memories now, so of course you will say that. Zhu Yu looked at her and said seriously, although I don't remember the past clearly, I can't forget the feelings and judgments in my heart. He reached out and pulled Gu Xingyin's hand to his chest so that she could feel his heartbeat. Here, he's telling me that in my heart, there's nothing that can compare to you. Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment. After a while, she turned her head away as if she was avoiding something. However, Zhu Yu could clearly see that her ears had secretly turned red. He was secretly amused. She had pretended to be an experienced Taoist when she spoke and acted like she was an experienced Taoist. But when she was serious, she was unexpectedly pure. Zhu Yu didn't want her to feel awkward, so she said, after talking for so long, I still don't know your name? Gu Xingyin calmly turned her head back and once again put on her high and mighty airs as the head of a sect. Then you must remember clearly, this seat's name is Wu Yeli. Zhu Yu nodded seriously. Yili, what a nice name. I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Gu Xingyin glared at him suspiciously. Wasn't there a rumor in the martial arts world of the Central Plains that the Alliance Master Zhu Yu was a man of noble character? Was he sure that the Zhu Yu he was talking about was the same person he saw? What kind of gentleman was this? He was obviously a vagabond who wandered around in a field of flowers. Gu Xingyin only said that because it was necessary. No one knew better than her whether this person was really Zhu Yu or not. Perhaps after losing his memories, his personality was more similar to her lover's. Gu Xingyin's eyes turned and looked at Zhu Yu. She asked her previous question again, then, what is the purpose of Alliance Master Zhu Yu's visit? Chapter 1345. Zhu Yu looked at the person in front of him. He replied, before I met you, I didn't know why I was so insistent on coming here. Now that I've met you, I know why. I'm here for you. Gu Xingyin was very satisfied with this answer. Her glass-like eyes were filled with smiles. She looked straight at Zhu Yu, as if she was hinting at something. You're here for me? What are you here for? Zhu Yu felt as if his mind was about to be lost in that pair of beautiful eyes. He followed his heart's desire and told her his deepest desire, I'm here for you. I want to stay by your side. I want to hug you. I want you to belong to me. If such words were to spread, I'm afraid I would become a demon who bewitches people's hearts. Zhu Yu looked at her smile and said in his heart, aren't you a demon? When I saw you, I felt that there was nothing else important in this world. Gu Xingyin's expression turned serious. She looked at Zhu Yu and asked, do you admire me? Zhu Yu nodded, I admire you. Gu Xingyin stopped keeping him in suspense, what a coincidence. I like you too. Zhu Yu's face lit up. Although he could roughly guess Gu Xingyin's thoughts from her words and actions, when he heard her admit it, he could not help but feel ecstatic. Gu Xingyin looked at him and smiled. Zhu Yu, when I saw you, I wanted to take you into my demon sect and make you the wife of the sect leader. Such words already sounded a little rude. However, Zhu Yu only nodded. That's a good idea. It's a pity that I don't remember the first time I met you. I don't know if I also wanted to take you back and make you the wife of the Martial Arts Alliance leader. He changed the topic and said, however, being the husband of the demon sect's leader doesn't sound too bad. It's not too late now. What do you think, Yili? The conversation between two straightforward people was always so straightforward. If the conversation between the two of them were to spread to the Jianghu, who knew how many jaws would drop in shock. However, judging from their personalities, they were not people who would pay attention to such things. Gu Xingyin was moved by Zhu Yu's words. In her previous life, it had always been her regret that the two of them could not be together. She did not know if Zhu Yu's personality in this life had been affected as well. However, making such a hasty decision was irresponsible to both of them. She looked at Zhu Yu and shook her head. Although I really want to announce to the world that you are already my man, this is not good. When you regain your memories, if you still have the same thoughts as you do now, I'm afraid that you'll regret it. How about I promise you a grand wedding ceremony? Zhu Yu nodded with a smile. At that time, it would be better for the wedding to be hosted by someone else. When Elderly hurriedly came back from outside to seek an audience with the hierarch, he saw that all the people who usually served the hierarch were guarding outside the waterside pavilion. He was puzzled. Cult Master isn't here? A maidservant in white replied, Cult Master is entertaining an important guest. Just as Elderly was wondering what kind of important guest it was, he saw their Cult Master and a young man walking out side by side. Elderly's eyes narrowed when he saw Zhu Yu. The Martial Arts Alliance leader, who was rumored to have disappeared after being poisoned, appeared in the demon sect. He was even with their cult master. Chapter 1346. Elderly. Gu Xingyin looked at Elderly, who was standing in front of her in a daze. She was a little puzzled. Do you have something to report? Elderly came back to his senses, and only then did he react. Wasn't the matter that he wanted to report by his own sect master's side? However, meeting his sect master's gaze, he still braced himself and said, I received news that the Wulian Alliance's chief had mysteriously disappeared on the way back after being poisoned. Cough, there are rumors saying that the demon sect was the culprit. As he spoke, he glanced at the Wulian Alliance's chief who was standing beside his sect master. He deeply felt that if others saw this person coming out of the demon sect, they would not be able to get away with it. Gu Xingyin glanced at Zhu Yu, who was beside her, and snorted coldly. Let them say whatever they want. What else can those Wulian people do other than gossip? Elderly immediately agreed. Actually, he did not care about those rumors at all. Instead, he wanted to know why the Wulian Alliance's chief would appear in their demon sect. Moreover, the two of them were getting along so well. However, Gu Xingyin obviously did not intend to explain to him. After she finished speaking, she sent him away. Gu Xingyin brought Zhu Yu around the demon sect. Zhu Yu looked around. Everything was neat and orderly. The surrounding buildings were not as sinister and scary as people imagined. There were even many children laughing and playing. It was no different from a normal sect. He was curious and asked, I don't think this place is as scary as the rumors say. Why is it called the demon sect? Moreover, it was fine if outsiders called it the demon sect. But why did the disciples of their sect call themselves the demon sect? Did they not think that it was an insulting term? Speaking of this, Gu Xingyin felt a little helpless. She said, we are not called the demon sect. We were originally called the demon sect. Zhu Yu was speechless. He had never thought that there would be people who would call their sect the demon sect. Was this blatantly telling others that they were not good people? Gu Xingyin brought Zhu Yu to an open space at the top of the mountain and sat down on a rock. Zhu Yu looked at her and imitated her. She found a rock and sat beside her. Gu Xingyin said, the ancestors of our devil cult came from outside the Great Wall. At that time, we were ostracized by the martial arts world of the Central Plains. In a fit of anger, our ancestor chose this deserted place and established a sect. At that time, our ancestors wanted to give our sect a domineering name. In the end, after much deliberation, they settled on the name Demon Sect. The old man thinks that no matter which evil cult it has always been an existence that can make people's expressions change. In the future, we will definitely become existences that will make those in the Chinese world of martial artists fear when they hear our names. At first, Zhiyu felt that it was quite serious, but towards the end, he couldn't help but laugh. Who would have thought that the demonic sect that struck fear into the hearts of the people of Jianghu would have such an origin? However, he said with a smile, the current devil cult has indeed made the martial arts world of the Central Plains pale at the mention of it. He said this subconsciously. Gu Xingyin did not pay attention to this. She nodded. That's right. In terms of strength, the Chinese world of martial artists. No sect is a match for the demon sect. Zhu Yu nodded when he saw the proud expression on the person beside him. Although he did not know the strength of the martial arts world of the Central Plains and the strength of the demon sect. However, everything Yi Li said was right. Chapter 1347. That night, Gu Xingyin gathered the core members of the demonic sect and said that she had something important to discuss. Something important to discuss? The elders and guardians of the demonic sect were all very excited when they heard the news. The demonic sect had always been very harmonious. Moreover, they were located near the border, so they basically had nothing to do. As for the ambition to dominate the Central Plains? Sorry, the demonic sect members were very lazy and did not have such great ambitions. Therefore, the people of the Central Plains were really thinking too much. They always felt that the demonic sect members were not of their kind and must be up to no good. Little did they know that the demonic sect members also felt that the people of the Central Plains were too scheming. They felt annoyed just looking at them, let alone occupying the Central Plains and dealing with them. From the top to the bottom of the devil's sect, other than being very diligent in practicing martial arts, they were very lazy in doing other things. After being lazy for a long time, even those who liked this kind of life would find it very boring. Since the sect leader had given the order, it was obvious that something big was going to happen. The senior members of the demonic sect all felt that it was a little annoying to raise flowers, plants, and birds every day. It was good to have something new to do. When the elders arrived at the meeting hall, they immediately saw the handsome man sitting next to their sect leader. At first glance, they did not recognize him, but he looked a little familiar. Forget it, it had nothing to do with them. 2 more steps, something was not right. Then, he sized up the man carefully. Why did he look so similar to the legendary New Alliance master of the Chinese world of martial artists? Although the demonic sect members were very lazy, they would not forget what they should do. For example, the senior members of the demonic sect all had a list and portrait of the famous and new talents of the Central Plains. After all, although they did not take them seriously, the Central Plains had always regarded them as enemies. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. Wasn't the first portrait on the list the person sitting in front of their sect leader now? They then sensed the aura around him. It was smooth and as heavy as a mountain, unmoving. Obviously, he was an expert whose martial arts had reached the level of perfection. Then, he could not be a fake. Who would be so generous to cultivate a person who had the looks and strength of the sect leader of the Central Plains? Then, he remembered the disappearance of his alliance master, which had been spreading like wildfire in the Chinese world of martial artists. The senior members of the demonic sect all looked at their sect leader with admiration. Their sect leader was the real expert. Look, even the sect leader of the Central Plains was sitting obediently next to their sect leader. Obviously, they thought that Gu Xingyin had used some special method to subdue the sect leader of the Central Plains. But after careful thought, they were right. It was just that Gu Xingyin's method of subduing people was a little different. Sect leader of the Central Plains, sect leader, sect leader. All sect leader of the demonic sect leader of the Central Plains sect leader sect, from today onwards, Mr. Gu will be a guest of the demonic sect. His sect. Gu Xingyin looked at Zhu Yu, who was looking at him with a smile, and said in a deep voice, "You are responsible for my safety." Sect. Although the members of the demonic sect felt that this was the end of the matter, they were still very happy to see this. Sect leader's safety? What did that mean? Sect leader's bodyguard. If those sanctimonious martial artists knew that their missing sect leader had become the sect leader's bodyguard, their expressions would be very interesting. Mr. Gu, you understand. Chapter 1348. Just like that, Zhu Yu remained in the demon sect. Gu Xingyin had also asked him if he wanted to return. After all, if this matter were to spread, it would not be good for Zhu Yu's reputation. Although she did not care about these matters, Zhu Yu still had such an identity. She was afraid that there would be some trouble after he regained his memory. However, Zhu Yu rejected her. He felt that staying by Gu Xingyin's side was the most comfortable thing for him. Since he insisted, Gu Xingyin had no need to push him away. The two of them would compete with each other in their spare time. Occasionally, they would play the flute and drink tea together. Their days were rather carefree. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. These days were so relaxing that Gu Xingyin felt a little uneasy. This was because Zhu Yu did not show any signs of regaining his memory. Every 2 days, Gu Xingyin would ask the godly doctor in the demon sect to diagnose Zhu Yu. However, the results were always the same. There was nothing wrong with Mr. Gu's body. Gu Xingyin had also checked on him many times. There was indeed nothing wrong with him. However, she just could not recall anything. Seeing her worried look, Zhu Yu comforted her, "Don't worry. It's just temporary. Even if I can't remember anything for the rest of my life, it doesn't matter. I feel that the way you are now is very good." Gu Xingyin's hand was held. She looked at Zhu Yu and was still very worried. Their relaxed days did not last long. The martial arts world in the Central Plains had not given up on searching for their missing leader. In the end, they found various clues that indicated that their leader was most likely in the hands of the demon sect. Gu Xingyin did not purposely hide the fact that the demon sect's leader had recently obtained an extremely powerful guard. Thinking about it, the identity of the leader's guard was rather suspicious. Senior brother must have been kidnapped by those despicable traitors from the demon sect. In the meeting hall of the Martial Union, a young lady who was seated near the front said worriedly. This lady's eyebrows were like distant mountains and her eyes were like waves. She was as beautiful as a hibiscus. Not to mention the fact that he was frowning with a worried and anxious look on his face. Not to mention those young men in their early 20s, even those old seniors who were used to the ways of the world couldn't bear to watch. There were many seniors in the martial arts world present. She was just a junior, but no one felt that it was wrong for her to speak here. Obviously, her status in the martial arts world was not low. This beautiful woman was the #1 beauty of the pugilistic world, Fairy Mingyue, Qing Mingyue. As soon as she finished speaking, a white-haired old man sitting beside her said, "Mingyue, there are so many old seniors here. How can a little girl like you speak?" Although his words were reprimanding, there was not much reprimand in his tone. "Brother Cheng, Mingyue is just too worried about her senior brother. You don't have to be so strict with her." Sure enough, as soon as Chengjun finished speaking, an immortal-looking Taoist priest in cyan clothes on his left tried to dissuade him. After debating for a long time, everyone finally looked at the white-robed old man. This white-robed old man was Zhu Yu's master, the former #1 expert in the world, Mu Qingfeng. Mu Qingfeng pondered for a while and said, "Tomorrow, I will personally go to the demon sect to investigate." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this. They all said that with Senior Mu taking action, they would definitely get a good result. Mu Qingfeng smiled bitterly. Did these people forget that he was defeated by the demon sect's leader half a year ago? Chapter 1349. Gu Xingyin was in a good mood today. She was about to boil a pot of tea at the back of the mountain when a subordinate came to report to her. "Sect leader, there is a group of people from the martial arts world at the foot of the mountain." She looked at the pot of tea that had just been simmered with pity and said to Zhu Yu, "The people who came to see you are here. Go and take a look." She had previously ordered that if people from the martial arts world of the Central Plains came to visit, they would be punished. If they spoke rudely and intended to barge in, they would be beaten up and thrown down the mountain. If they had a polite attitude, they would be allowed to go up the mountain. Mu Qingfeng led a group of people up the mountain. When he saw the rumored devil sect, he was no less surprised than Zhu Yu. Mu Qingfeng said to the person beside him, "This devil sect is different from what we usually thought." The woman behind him, who was wearing a white gauze hat, said, "Maybe this devil sect is deliberately mystifying things." This woman was Qing Mingyue, who had insisted on coming to take a look. She obviously had a lot of prestige among this group of young people. When she said this, several people nodded in agreement. Mu Qingfeng looked at this and sighed inwardly. This young disciple of his had good talent and a good background. However, his breadth of mind and vision were a bit too narrow. When the devil sect disciple who led the way heard these words, his mouth moved. In the end, he thought of his sect leader's order and said nothing. This group of people from the martial arts world of the Central Plains couldn't beat them in a fight. They could only use their remaining mouths to defend the little bit of dignity they had left. He led them to a large hall and didn't go in. "The inside is not a place I can enter. Everyone, please go in." When Qing Mingyue saw that a small member of the devil's sect didn't seem to care about her group, she couldn't stand it. She had always been surrounded by people no matter where she went. She sneered and said sarcastically, "You are really a barbarian outside the pass. You don't even know how to treat guests." When Mu Qingfeng heard this, his face darkened. "Mingyue." Qing Mingyue looked indignant. Her master insisted on saying that they were here to ask for help and asked them to restrain their temper. According to her, couldn't they just attack the devil sect directly? At this time, the disciple said, "Our demonic sect has always treated phoenixes with the etiquette of receiving phoenixes. Towards pheasants, we treat pheasants with the etiquette of pheasants. My apologies for making you laugh." "You?" Qing Mingyue's face turned ashen. Wasn't he clearly mocking them by saying that they were just pheasants? She had always been pampered since she was young. When had she ever suffered such neglect? Immediately, the whip at his waist shot out. It transformed into a snake baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, and was about to whip that disciple. Mu Qingfeng didn't expect his disciple's temper to be so violent. Just as he was about to raise his hand to stop her, he saw the devil sect disciple who was leading the way unhurriedly reach out his hand from his sleeve. His hands were as white as jade, which obviously didn't match his ordinary face. A few Central Plains disciples' gazes were attracted by his hand. Then, the next moment, their eyes widened. This person had actually caught Qing Mingyue's whip with his bare hands so easily. It should be known that Qing Mingyue's master was the former #1 expert, Mu Qingfeng. Although her attainments in martial arts weren't as high as eldest senior brother Zhu Yu's, she was still an outstanding talent among the younger generation. None of the Central Plains disciples present dared to say that they could catch her whip so easily. This devil sect was actually so powerful. Even an ordinary disciple had the ability to stand on equal footing with the best of the younger generation in the Central Plains. Chapter 1350. When Ming Xian saw the look of disbelief on the faces of the people from the Central Plains, his face remained expressionless. He was secretly pleased. How could he be an ordinary disciple? He was Elder Li's favorite disciple and also the most talented one among his brothers. When he heard that people from the Central Plains had arrived, Elder Li kicked him to receive the guests. Oh, no, to receive the guests. Elder Li also secretly told him that those people in the martial arts world of the Central Plains liked to pretend to be sanctimonious. They pretended to be good people, gentlemen, and noble people. If necessary, you should also pretend to be good people. That was what Elder Li said to him. He was most at ease with his youngest disciple. When it came to scheming, even an old man like him who had lived for more than half his life couldn't compare to this stinky brat. Ming Xian put down the whip in his hand and continued to say calmly, "Everyone should go into the hall. The cult leader is still waiting." His words showed that he didn't care about Qing Mingyue's whip at all. Qing Mingyue was so angry that her face turned blue. However, after Mu Qingfeng glanced at her, he stopped her from continuing to pester him. Let's go. Seeing that Qing Mingyue was still standing there, Mu Qingfeng's voice deepened. Mingyue, you don't even listen to your master's words? In Qing Mingyue's heart, Mu Qingfeng was still a deterrent. She bit her lips until they were bright red. She fiercely stomped her feet and followed her master into the hall. At this moment, there were two people sitting in the spacious hall. The woman in purple was sitting at the head of the table with her head propped up. She was looking at the other person's movements. The other person was a man in a green robe, who was earnestly brewing tea. Both of them had a serious expression and didn't seem to notice that there was a group of people in the hall. As soon as Qing Mingyue entered the hall, she was completely attracted by the man in green. Eldest martial brother. Zhu Yuan hurriedly poured Gu Xingyin's cup to the brim and then put down the teapot in his hand. He looked at the beautiful woman who had taken off her veil with some doubt. Miss, are you calling me? Gu Xingyin had never concealed his identity and also said that he had a very powerful identity. However, Zhu Yu, who had no memory at all, had no impression of any of this. As soon as he said this, the people of the martial arts world who had come with him were in an uproar. Even his master, Mu Qingfeng, frowned. Gu Xingyin picked up the teacup and sniffed it. Then she smiled and said, "Yes, I'm calling you." As soon as she said this, Qing Mingyue's gaze finally landed on her. With just a glance, her pupils shrank. Qing Mingyue had been conceited about her beauty since she was young. Of course, she also had the right to be proud. As she grew older, she became more and more beautiful. In the entire martial arts world of the Central Plains, there was no other woman who was more beautiful than her. She was, without a doubt, the most beautiful woman in the Chinese world of martial arts. This was not wrong, because Wu Yili was not from the Central Plains. If she was from the Central Plains, Qing Mingyue would not have been crowned the most beautiful woman in the Central Plains. This was the first time Qing Mingyue had seen such a beautiful and aggressive woman. This woman, her facial features, the way she sat, and even the casual smile on her face exuded a soul-stirring charm. To men, it was a fatal attraction. Sitting here, she could only be the demon sex master, Wu Yili. Chapter 1351. Qing Mingyue's heart was filled with jealousy and hatred. Not only was she jealous of this woman's beauty, but she was also jealous of how intimate she was with eldest senior brother. Qing Mingyue had a good impression of eldest senior brother Zhu Yu since a long time ago. Her status was high enough and she usually came into contact with the best of the younger generation in the martial arts world. But no matter how many people saw it, those people could only be reduced to a foil in front of her eldest senior brother. The young girl's heart had unknowingly fallen in love with him. But Zhu Yu had always been gentle and polite to her, his junior sister. They were close to each other since they were from the same sect. But Qing Mingyue didn't want this kind of intimacy. She knew that in eldest senior brother Zhu Yu's eyes, she was only a junior sister who needed to be taken care of and not a grown-up girl. If it had always been like this, it would have been fine. After all, there were many women who admired eldest senior brother in the martial arts world. But no one had ever obtained the qualifications to stand by his side. Only she, Qing Mingyue, was the closest person to eldest senior brother. But now, what did she see? Eldest senior brother, who had always been gentle and polite and kept a distance from others, was actually bending over to brew tea for her and even personally holding it in her hands. That attentive attitude was as if he wasn't holding a cup of tea, but Qing Mingyue shook her head and told herself not to think too much. She looked straight at Gu Xingyin and shouted, "You demoness, what have you done to my eldest senior brother?" Gu Xingyin frowned. Slap. A resounding slap resounded in the spacious hall. Mu Qingfeng didn't even have time to stop it. Qing Mingyue covered her face and her face was filled with disbelief and hatred. This woman had actually slapped him in the face in front of so many people. Gu Xingyin gently shook her hand and looked at Qing Mingyue's face without any emotion. Disaster comes from the mouth. Little girl, you should be careful. You. Qing Mingyue wanted to speak again, but when she met Gu Xingyin's cold eyes, she swallowed her words. She knew that if she really spoke, the woman in front of her wouldn't be afraid of anything. Her expression suddenly changed, and her eyes glistened with tears. Clear teardrops rolled down her face. Mu Qingfeng looked at his little disciple. Although he secretly thought that she was impulsive, he still felt a little distressed. He looked at Gu Xingyin and the indifferent eldest disciple beside her. He frowned and said, "It's just a little kid who doesn't know any better. I'm afraid cult master's punishment is too severe." How important was a girl's face? Too heavy. Gu Xingyin suddenly stood up. "I'm afraid that everyone thinks that it's unreasonable for me to slap her. This little brat called me a demoness, and that's how it should be. Perhaps, in everyone's eyes, I'm really a demoness?" She sneered and looked at Mu Qingfeng. "Old Master Mu, you can be considered a senior in the martial arts world. Think about it carefully. If I call you old fart Mu Qingfeng now, will you think that I'm young and ignorant?" At this moment, she stood up and her purple robe fluttered without any wind. Although her face was young, she had an inviolable posture. "I thought that you were all people of etiquette, but I didn't expect you to have such an attitude. Since that's the case," she coldly shouted, "come, send the guests out." Chapter 1352. Following her words, countless devil sect disciples dressed in black suddenly rushed into the main hall. They stood on both sides of the main hall and surrounded the crowd. They looked at the group of martial artists with an unfriendly expression. Under such circumstances, the young men who were originally filled with indignation finally took a step back and approached Mu Qingfeng. They seemed to have only just remembered. They were not facing anyone else but the leader of the devil sect. Mu Qingfeng looked at Gu Xingyin with a complicated expression. What she said before was right. When his disciple called her a witch, although he felt that Mingyu was a little rude, he did not feel that there was anything wrong. Perhaps he had always prided himself on being fair, but in his heart, he still held a grudge against the devil sect. Until he was awakened by the young leader of the devil sect. He had lived for more than half of his life, but his knowledge was not as good as a junior. He looked at the imposing leader of the devil sect and then looked at the well-trained disciples of the devil sect. He secretly sighed in his heart. Just by looking at the devil sect, he could tell that it was much stronger than the Wulian sects in recent years. He cupped his hands and said to Gu Xingyin, "We were rude. Please forgive us." Gu Xingyin turned sideways and bowed in return. She had acted in order to gain the initiative by striking first. If she was suppressed in her own territory, she would not be able to hold the position of the devil sect's leader. After all, the person in front of her was Zhu Yu's master. She could not go too far. Mu Qingfeng continued, "Today, we are here because of my good-for-nothing disciple, Zhu Yu. I don't know if the leader can explain it to us." Qing Mingyue looked at her master and was very puzzled. She widened her eyes and said, "Master, why are we talking so much nonsense with her? This person was so rude to you just now. Let's just fight and take senior back." "Mingyue, shut up." Mu Qingfeng used to think that his disciple was naive. Only now did he know that she did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Where was this place? The devil sect's headquarters. How could the few of them deal with the masters of the demonic sect? No matter how conceited Mu Qingfeng was, he knew that if they were to become enemies, the ones who would not be able to walk out of Mount Wudu would be him and the others. Qing Mingyue was reprimanded by her master, who had always doted on her. She felt extremely wronged. She raised her head and saw Zhu Yu, who had been standing silently beside Gu Xingyin. She immediately blurted out, "Senior. Are you just going to watch this devil sect leader bully your master and junior sister like this? You're the alliance master of the Chinese server. How could he be in the demonic sect with this demon?" She was about to call Gu Xingyin a demonic woman again, but when she saw Gu Xingyin's half-smiling eyes, she remembered the lesson Gu Xingyin had taught her and swallowed her words. Are the people of the devil sect colluding with each other? Zhu Yu watched the show from beginning to end. To be honest, Gu Xingyin had not deliberately concealed his identity during his time in the devil sect. She had told him about his past and identity without reservation. She had also never concealed her dislike of the Chinese server's martial arts world. But even so, she had never smeared the reputation of the Chinese server's martial arts world in front of him. On the contrary, from the moment this group of martial arts world people entered the main hall, they carried a sense of superiority. They said that they were begging for help, but in reality, they felt that he was doing the devil's sect a favor by coming here. He could not help but think, so I was one of these people before? Chapter 1353. He subconsciously glanced at Gu Xingyin. She was looking at him with a smile. It was obvious that she did not take those people's words to heart. Zhu Yu's mood suddenly relaxed. He stood up and walked into the main hall. However, he did not walk to the side of the group of people. Instead, he maintained a relatively polite distance. Zhu Yu said in a clear voice, "Ever since I woke up, I have forgotten about the past. Therefore, I do not know who you are and why you have come to find me. The leader of the demon sect that you are talking about is my benefactor. Even though I have forgotten some things, I know how to repay kindness. Therefore, I am here as a guest to repay the debt of gratitude." In just a few words, he clearly explained why he was in the demon sect. However, he still lied about one thing. He did not stay here because he was saved by Gu Xingyin. He came here on his own. However, looking at the attitude of this group of people, Zhu Yu felt that it would be better if he did not say that. When he was talking, Mu Qingfeng kept looking at his eldest disciple. When he saw that his breath was smooth and there was no sense of stagnation, he knew that he was not injured. When he looked at his eyes when he spoke, he knew that he was not lying. However, when Qing Mingyue heard Zhu Yu's words, she screamed, "Gu? You said that your surname is Gu? You are obviously my senior, the leader of Wulin, Zhu Yu. It's not like the leader of the demon sect has not seen you before. Why did he deliberately tell you his fake identity? What is his intention?" The last sentence was obviously directed at Gu Xingyin. Seeing that the flames of war had spread to her, Gu Xingyin could not help but raise her eyebrows. When she saw the faint jealousy in Qing Mingyue's eyes, Gu Xingyin understood. She was wondering why Qing Mingyue acted as if she had a grudge against her when they met for the first time. So this was the reason. In the original plot, she used the Gu to harm Wu Yili. Other than the so-called justice, it was also because of jealousy. Zhu Yu frowned and looked at Qing Mingyue. Was this beautiful girl his junior? How could he speak so rudely? At this time, Mu Qingfeng suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Zhu Yu, can I take your pulse?" Zhu Yu looked at the old man who spoke. Although he did not recognize him, there was something about him that made him want to get close to him. Since he claimed to be his teacher, Zhu Yu had a plan in his heart. He took a few steps forward and exposed his wrist. Mu Qingfeng took his wrist and carefully examined it. Like everyone else, he couldn't find anything wrong with it. At this moment, Gu Xingyin spoke. "Previously, when I was fighting with Alliance leader Zhu Yu for the Frigid Pond Snow Lotus, Alliance leader Zhu Yu was bitten by the jade-scaled snake because of me. I didn't want to take advantage of others, so I fed all of the Cold Pond Snow Lotus to detoxify the poison. Zhu Yu's memory loss might be due to the poison." Mu Qingfeng and the others had already heard what she said from the mouths of the martial artists who went with them at that time. It was exactly the same as what Gu Xingyin had said. The group of martial artists even praised the demon sect leader for his noble character and unquestionable integrity. Mu Qingfeng sighed and whispered to Zhu Yu, "Disciple, you are still a member of martial union. Staying in the demon sect is not a long-term solution. Are you willing to return with me?" Zhu Yu's heart moved when he heard this. Naturally, he was not willing. He wished that he could stay by that person's side all the time. He also did not feel that there was anything wrong with losing his memory. Chapter 1354. However, before he could say anything, Mu Qingfeng raised his voice to Gu Xingyin and said, "On behalf of my disciple, I would like to thank the sect leader for saving his life and taking him in. However, my disciple Zhu Yu is still the Wulin Alliance head. Staying in the demon sect is not a long-term solution." He paused for a moment before continuing, "As for my disciple's life-saving grace, if the sect leader needs anything, as long as this old man can do it, I will definitely not refuse." His words were very polite, and coupled with Mu Qingfeng's identity as a senior in the Wulin Alliance, everyone felt that he was very sincere. Cheng Mingyue was still feeling indignant in her heart, but at this time, no one cared about her. When Gu Xingyin saw that everyone was following Mu Qingfeng's gaze to look at her, she couldn't help but smile strangely. "Why are you all looking at me? The person you want to take away is not me." Mu Qingfeng was relieved when he heard this. From her tone, it seemed that the sect leader of the demon sect had no intention of not letting him go. However, Gu Xingyin frowned as if she was very distressed. It wasn't easy for this sect leader to find such a suitable bodyguard. "If you want to take him away just like that, it really makes me a little unhappy." Even though Mu Qingfeng felt that he had good self-restraint, he still felt helpless when faced with this eccentric sect leader of the demon sect. He directly said, "Then does the sect leader have any requests?" No matter what, he must take his disciple away from the demon sect today. Gu Xingyin held her chin as she looked at their troubled expressions. A trace of joy flashed through her eyes. However, only Zhu Yu, who had been paying attention to her all this time, could see her emotions. Zhu Yu couldn't help but laugh in his heart. During the time he spent with her, Gu Xingyin had never once concealed her true nature in front of him. At this moment, he naturally saw that she was deliberately looking for trouble. She was taking revenge on these Wulin people for their rude attitude. Zhu Yu's heart had long been biased. Seeing this situation, he didn't feel that she was going overboard at all. Instead, he felt that this person was really cute. Cheng Mingyue's thoughts were always on her senior martial brother. But what made her angry was that for such a long time, senior brother didn't even look at her. His eyes were always on the devil's sex witch. This made her secretly grind her silver teeth to the point of shattering. What's so good about this witch from the devil's sect? Wasn't she just a little good-looking? She was obviously a little vixen who was used to seducing men. Gu Xingyin suddenly met Zhu Yu's smiling eyes. Seeing the undisguised tenderness in the man's eyes, her mood suddenly improved. Looking at this group of Wulin people, he found them a little more pleasing to the eye. She said, "In this case, Grandpa Mu, can you agree to my 3 conditions?" Seeing that she had finally opened her mouth to state her conditions, Mu Qingfeng's heart calmed down. "Sect Master, please speak." "First, from now on, no one in the martial arts world is allowed to tarnish the reputation of the devil's sect." Gu Xingyin snorted. "Don't think that we don't know anything. In the past, whenever there was an unsolved case in the martial arts world, we would throw all the dirty and smelly things at the devil cult. My devil cult is just too lazy to deal with those clowns." She looked at Mu Qingfeng. "Can Grandpa Mu agree to this condition?" Mu Qingfeng thought for a moment. This wasn't something that was too excessive. He nodded. "This old man will explain this to my fellow Wulin people when I return." Gu Xingyin said, "That's good. If something like this happens again in the future, I will only look for Grandpa Mu and Alliance Master Zhu Yu." Chapter 1355. Mu Qingfeng choked upon hearing her words. He thought for a while and did not say anything. Gu Xingyin continued, "Second question. I heard that old Master Mu has a golden silk cup." Mu Qingfeng's expression changed when he heard this. He had obtained the golden silk cup from a secret place many years ago. Even after so many years, he still could not figure out its use. No one knew about the existence of the golden silk cup. How did the demon sect leader know about it? How did Gu Xingyin know about it? Of course, it was because in the original plot, Mu Qingfeng gave the golden silk cup to his disciple Cheng Mingyue as a gift. Cheng Mingyue used the 1,000 threads insect in the golden silk cup to control Wu Yili. In this life, she must strike first to gain the upper hand. Gu Xingyin ignored Mu Qingfeng's expression and said, "I heard that the golden silk cup is extremely beautiful. I would like to ask Elder Mu for it." Mu Qingfeng muttered to himself and nodded, "I will personally send someone to deliver it to Mount Wudu when I return." Mu Qingfeng was a man of his word. He would not go back on his word. "I wonder what is sect leader's 3rd request?" Mu Qingfeng asked in a deep voice. Gu Xingyin smiled sweetly, "I haven't thought of the 3rd request yet." Why don't I tell Elder Mu after I think of it? Qing Mingyue's expression changed. Hey! Don't go too far. If that was the case, wouldn't it be the same as having a weakness that could be used against her master? Gu Xingyin picked up the teacup in his hand and looked at the cold tea that had formed a layer of transparent green. He said casually, she said casually, I am only stating my request. You can choose whether to agree or not. Mu Qingfeng's expression changed a few times. In the end, he said, fine. Zhu Yu felt helpless. These people seemed to have completely ignored his opinion. Those people who claimed to be his master and martial siblings seemed to be certain that he was willing to go with them. At this time, Gu Xingyin's voice rang in his ears. Why don't you go back to martial union with them? There are many godly doctors in martial union. They might be able to help you recover your memory. It was secret sound transmission. Zhu Yu was stunned. All right, since she wants me to quickly recover my memories. Actually, he didn't really care about it. However, Yi Li seemed to be very concerned about it. She was afraid that there might be some hidden dangers, so she was always very worried. Zhu Yu recalled the promise between the two of them. Once he regained his memories, he would be able to truly be with her. As he thought of this, a faint sense of anticipation rose in his heart. That was good too. Gu Xingyin looked at the group of people below and said faintly, since that's the case, take care. I won't see you off. Her style of doing things was clean and efficient. Once the matter was settled, she would leave quickly. She did not hide the fact that she did not have a good impression of the Chinese martial arts world. The disciples of the demonic cult in black who surrounded the group of martial artists also retreated in an orderly manner. Zhu Yu was very cooperative and followed them out of Mount Wudu. Gu Xingyin watched them leave the main hall and retracted her gaze. Then, she gathered a group of elders and said that she was going into seclusion. The group of elders of the demonic cult expressed, Sect Master, don't worry. Even if you are not around, the demonic cult will be fine with us around. At night, a black figure silently went down Mount Wudu without anyone noticing. Gu Xingyin felt that it was best to keep an eye on her man. That way, she could be at ease. Chapter 1356. On the flat official road, a group of people were galloping on their horses. It was the group that had left Mount Wudu not long ago. Qing Mingyue looked at Zhu Yu, who had been silent since they left and seemed to be in a bad mood. She thought for a while and walked over to him while everyone was resting. Senior. She passed him a water bag. Have some water. Zhu Yu glanced at her but did not take it. I have some here, thank you. He pointed at his horse. Everyone was equipped with a water skin. Qing Mingyue bit her lips and did not leave. She sat beside Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu glanced at her and moved away slightly. Junior sister Cheng, men and women should not touch each other. It is better for us to avoid arousing suspicion. Qing Mingyue's face turned pale. She seemed to be in a bad mood, but more than that, she was sad. Her senior was not willing to be close to her even though he had lost his memory. She said in a low voice, I have been under master's tutelage since I was young and grew up with senior. What is there to avoid? Zhu Yu said calmly, even if we are senior and junior, there is no such thing as avoiding men and women. How could he not see that this junior sister of his had other intentions towards him? Qing Mingyue had never concealed her admiration for Zhu Yu. In fact, before Zhu Yu lost his memory, Qing Mingyue had always thought that she would be the one to stand beside Zhu Yu and become the Alliance Master's wife. Qing Mingyue was not the only one who thought so. Many people in the martial arts world thought so too. In the martial arts world, who else could match up to Fairy Mingyue in terms of reputation and martial arts? However, Zhu Yu had always treated this junior sister who had grown up with him as a younger sister. The two of them fell into silence. After a while, some people started to get up. They had rested enough and were ready to set off again. Zhu Yu also got up and said to Qing Mingyue, Junior sister Qing, we are about to set off. Qing Mingyue suddenly said, Senior martial brother, do you know that junior martial sister has always admired you? After all, she was only a 17-year-old girl. When she said this, Qing Mingyue's face turned pink. She was born beautiful and this gesture was undoubtedly very seductive. However, Zhu Yu merely glanced at her and said, although Zhu Yu has lost his memories, he still knows his own thoughts. From the beginning to the end, Zhu Yu had no romantic feelings for junior sister Qing. After he finished speaking, he no longer looked at Qing Mingyue and mounted the horse. Qing Mingyue was left standing there alone. The pink on her face had yet to fade when she was shocked by Zhu Yu's merciless words. If it was the previous Zhu Yu, he would definitely not have said such cold words. After losing his past memories, Zhu Yu indeed had less scruples. Mu Qinfeng saw that his little disciple was still standing there and couldn't help but shout loudly. Mingyue! Time to go. Qing Mingyue came back to her senses and responded in a low voice. Then, she mounted her horse and the group left again. Not long after they left, a figure slowly walked over from afar. She seemed to be walking very slowly, as if she was admiring flowers on a spring day. However, just a moment ago, she was still very far away, and in the next second, she was already in front of him. If there was a martial artist here, he would definitely be speechless at this superb qigong. This person was Gu Xingyin, who had followed this group of martial artists all the way from Mount Wudu. Chapter 1357. She thought that she had nothing to do and was worried about Zhu Yu. Besides, the target of the mission, Qing Mingyue, was also here, so she decided to follow them. Logically speaking, in the martial arts world, there were many people who had achieved perfection in qigong. However, no one dared to use qigong to chase after a horse like Gu Xingyin. Why? It was not that their martial arts were not good enough, but their bodies could not keep up. Let's not talk about whether the true energy in the body would be exhausted. Even if the body was strong, the body of an ordinary martial artist would not be able to withstand such high consumption. However, Gu Xingyin was not worried about this problem at all. She had obtained a powerful skill in this world, which was an S-grade physique strengthened by the genetic stock solution. This physique was at the top of the pyramid in the Great Milky Way era. If it was in this world, Gu Xingyin had tried using ordinary swords and knives. At most, it could only leave a white mark on the surface of her skin. In other words, unless it was a divine weapon, the ordinary weapons in this world would not be able to hurt her at all. Even the most powerful golden bell shield and iron skin technique could not reach this level. Gu Xingyin even had an interesting thought. Even if Qing Mingyue wanted to poison her again in this world, she probably would not be able to do it. That delicate little worm could not break through her body's defenses. When it was almost dark, Zhu Yu and the others finally saw an inn. The owner of the inn was obviously experienced and knowledgeable. When he saw that they were a group of martial artists, he did not panic like ordinary innkeepers. Innkeeper, prepare 3 tables of food and 8 rooms for us. The person who spoke was Qing Mingyue. Qing Mingyue was the only woman in their group. Naturally, she would have a room for herself. Mu Qinfeng would have 1 room, Zhu Yu, who had lost her memory and did not like to interact with people, would have 1 room. The remaining 5 rooms would be given to the other martial artists. The others did not have any objections to such an arrangement. However, the innkeeper was a little embarrassed. To be honest, there are only 8 rooms in this small inn. Today, a guest has already booked 1 room. As he spoke, he looked at a person in the corner. It was a woman who was eating alone with her back facing everyone. Judging from his back, his looks shouldn't be too bad. There weren't many people in this inn. Today, other than Qing Mingyue's group, the entire inn only had that woman and 2 guests at another table. It was relatively quiet. However, the woman didn't turn her head when she heard the conversation. It was as if what they were talking about had nothing to do with her. Of course, it was also possible that she simply did not place them in her eyes at all. Either way, it was unbearable for Qing Mingyue, who was used to being high and mighty all year round. However, she would not make a fuss like those brainless women. Instead, he leisurely walked in front of that person and said, "Miss, our group has gone through a long and arduous journey. Would Miss be willing to give up the upper room? I'm willing to pay double." Zhu Yu frowned. It was true that they had traveled a long distance, but it didn't mean that they couldn't stay in other rooms besides the best ones. Why did they have to fight for other people's rooms? However, he had not recovered his memories and felt that he was a little unfamiliar with this group of people in front of him, so it was not good for him to speak up and stop them. As she spoke, Qing Mingyue finally saw the woman's face clearly. She couldn't help but let out an sound.